Chapter 728. A Genius Will Remember Love in a Second Divided by Small? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 730. Surpassing the Law-Defying. At that instant, countless memories surged into Qin Nan's mind. A love go small say, Chu, almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than the average website, and the updates are faster too. It's all text with no advertisements. 79. He had seen an ancient presence entering the Tao-seeking treasure vault 1,000 years ago. 300 years ago, the ancient presence had silently appeared from the Tao-seeking treasure vault and entered the Kanglan continent, where he found a weapon refiner with the name Heaven-Breaking Emperor. 300 years ago, the entire continent was astounded. The Heaven-Breaking Emperor had used his tribulation, flesh, and martial arts to forge an extraordinary saber, which was known as the Heaven-Shattering Saber. As soon as the saber was forged, it immediately stirred up a great bloodbath. However, to everyone's surprise, the Heaven-Shattering Saber was nowhere to be found. Despite searching for it, no one was able to find it. It had returned to the Tao-seeking treasure vault and waited patiently for the arrival of its master. Even though I didn't know you already knew my love for sabers 300 years ago. But, thank you for your kindness. I won't let you down. Qin Nan's eyes emitted a shocking glow as he opened his mind. Whoosh! A shocking change took place. The heaven-shattering saber emitted an ancient aura, which transformed into a ray of light that entered Qin Nan's right arm, resulting in an unbelievable combination. At that instant, Qin Nan's right arm was the right arm of the divine god of battle, and it was also the heaven-shattering saber. There was no distinction between them. Bang! A shocking explosion took place. A terrifyingly pure force surged into Qin Nan's dantian like a surging ocean. The force of the martial highness realm in his body skyrocketed, as if it had received some kind of stimulation. 299 streams. 399 streams. 499 streams. 599 streams. 999 streams in the blink of an eye. Qin Nan's cultivation instantly rose from the first layer martial highness realm to the peak martial highness realm. It was the same as when his martial highness crystal was not destroyed at the Tao-seeking mountain, thus he was perfectly unharmed. In the blink of an eye, it was heaven and hell. My cultivation, Qin Nan's mind trembled violently. That was because everything was not over yet. Rumble! A shocking absorption force burst out from Qin Nan's right arm, which absorbed the qi of the sacred emperor chamber into Qin Nan's body. The force of the martial highness realm in Qin Nan's body skyrocketed once again. Pop! A soft sound rang out. The force of the martial highness realm in Qin Nan's body had reached 1,000 streams, allowing him to achieve the undefeatable martial highness realm. It's not over yet. Qin Nan felt an indescribable surge of emotions in his heart. 1,800 strands. 2,800 strands. 3,800 strands. 4,800 strands. In the blink of an eye, it had reached 9,999 streams, allowing him to achieve the peak law-defying martial highness realm. Meanwhile, compared to before, Qin Nan's cultivation had completely recovered. This was the heaven-shattering saber. How shocking was the change that took place after merging with the saber! Roar! A tremendous roar could be heard all of a sudden, which turned out to be the divine battle spirit, which had appeared out of nowhere behind Qin Nan and stood in midair. The 10 golden rays behind the martial spirit were extremely blinding. Qin Nan could clearly sense a tremendous force merging with the divine battle spirit. Could it be? Qin Nan held his breath. He could only see the right arm of the divine battle spirit turning solid all of a sudden. At that instant, the aura of the divine battle spirit underwent a shocking change. The 10 beams of golden light suddenly exploded with a bang, filling the sky with golden specks of light. An invisible suction force was unleashed, sucking in all of the golden light dots and turning them into a red dot. As soon as the red dot was born, it grew rapidly at a shocking pace, which soon covered the entire back of the divine battle spirit. The aura of the divine battle spirit rose rapidly in all directions. It was as if the entire place was filled with a chant. The force of the heavens and earth began to ripple vigorously, as if it was being disturbed by the divine battle spirit. At that instant, Qin Nan's face was filled with astonishment. Even though he had already expected it, he could not help but be astounded when he saw it with his own eyes. First grade Tian. First grade Tian ranked? That's right. The divine battle spirit had completely leveled up to the first grade Tian ranked. The difference between a D-ranked martial spirit and a Tian-ranked martial spirit was extremely terrifying. Even in the entire eastern continent, including the Mu clan, he had never heard of a genius possessing a Tian-ranked martial spirit. The top 3 on the Hidden Dragon ranking were only 10th grade D-ranked. If Qin Nan was considered a peerless genius in the past, then the current him could only be described as peerless. The real top 1 in the eastern continent. Master! 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 3 ancient voices exploded in the sacred emperor space all of a sudden. The 3 ancient figures floated in the air, causing the chi of the sacred emperor to surge violently. Even the sacred emperor's abode began to crack. The left eye, the sacred leader, the right arm. Qin Nan stared at the 3 figures with a blank expression. He knew that after merging with the body parts of the divine god of battle, his cultivation and martial spirit would improve. However, he had never seen anything like this before. The ancient path is long, the peerless battle spirit, the boundless heavens and earth, the body of my master. At that instant, the left eye, the sacred leader, and the right arm uttered a shocking roar. At that instant, Qin Nan's left eye, left arm, and right arm of the divine god of battle emitted a shocking force, as an indescribable mysterious force slowly awakened. The force surpassed everything in the heavens and earth. It was a force that had never been seen before. Regardless of whether it was the heavens and earth, destiny, karma, etc., they would all submit to the force. This is... Qin Nan's eyes were filled with astonishment. Staring at the mysterious force, his heart was filled with a sense of déjà vu. However, he could not tell why. Bang! The mysterious force from the left eye, left arm, and right arm finally exploded and merged into Qin Nan's dantian. A shocking sight took place. The force of the martial highness realm in Qin Nan's body began to surge vigorously as if it was being stimulated. Crack! At this moment, what seemed like an ancient gate was completely opened. The 9,999 streams of the force of the martial highness realm had increased by 1 stream, reaching 10,000 streams. This. Qin Nan's mind was filled with a great explosion. 999 streams were the peak martial highness realm. 1,000 streams were the undefeatable martial highness realm. 9,999 streams were the law-defying martial highness realm. And now 10,000 streams. Had he surpassed the law-defying martial highness realm? Chapter 729. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 731 Evil Karma of the Heavens and Earth. Divine Battle Martial Highness at that instant. Access. Bang. The mysterious force inside his dantian unleashed a terrifying force, which instantly exploded Qin Nan's body, causing his flesh to explode into a bloody mist that scattered into the surroundings. Normally, when the flesh was destroyed, the person would die. However, Qin Nan could still feel himself alive, as if his soul had left his body and was floating in the air, observing everything around him without feeling any harm. What's going on? Qin Nan was startled. He suddenly recalled the 10,000 streams of the force of the martial highness realm. It had surpassed the law-defying realm, but he was still not a martial sacred, but a martial highness. What kind of martial highness was he? It was a completely new level that no one could understand. Now that his flesh had exploded, his thoughts were still present, which meant rebirth after destruction, rebirth. Qin Nan's thoughts became clearer as if he had seen through the mystical glow. Buzz! A brilliant purple glow was fired into the sky from the bloody mist, which unleashed a powerful absorption force that gathered the bloody mist and transformed it into a bloody figure. Not long after, the bloody figure transformed back into Qin Nan's appearance. Qin Nan's thoughts immediately returned to his flesh. An indescribable force rose in his heart all of a sudden. Rebirth! Rebirth! Everything was different now. His flesh and skin were now mixed with a purple glow. His blood had turned into purple snow. His bones had turned into purple bones. His internal organs were completely purple. Inside his dantian, 10,000 streams of the force of the martial highness realm were spread out, leaving an empty space in the middle, as if the ministers were paying their respects to their emperor. The mysterious force at the center of the space seemed to be touched by a giant brush, which slowly moved according to the writing, forming the character Battle. Please read this book, Battle reads. It's actually the word war. All these changes are because of the mysterious force that was triggered by the left eye, left arm, and right arm. Now, this mysterious energy is actually going to form the word battle. Qin Nan immediately recalled what the right arm of the divine god of battle had said before merging with his flesh. Awakening, the true form of the war god. Could it be, he is now a war god martial honorable? War god martial sovereign. That's right, the war god martial sovereign. Qin Nan's eyes emitted a brilliant glow. His emotions were surging like the sea, surging violently. The strength of the war god was immeasurable. Now, he had obtained 3 war god body parts and merged with them, thus bringing about all these changes, becoming a war god martial lord. The divine battle martial highness, when compared to the real divine god of battle, was like a seed compared to a towering tree. But the seed would germinate and flourish, and one day it would become a towering tree. In short, one day, with the foundation of the divine battle martial highness realm, he would surely become the divine battle god of the past. This was the true form of the divine god of battle. Even the weakest divine battle martial highness realm with the most basic foundation would surely surpass the law-defying martial highness realm, surpass all the rules of the Kanglan continent, and surpass the limits of the Kanglan continent, etc., to become a unique existence. Even the heavens and earth would not be able to restrain this existence. However, as the word battle was about to be tapped, a terrifying sight took place. How, how, how! It felt like countless ferocious cries of phantoms could be heard. A gap appeared out of nowhere, allowing countless streams of black qi to enter it, which ignored the forbidding aura of the sacred emperor chamber and instantly arrived before Qin Nan. In the blink of an eye, 3,333 streams of black qi were formed. The black qi gathered together like a tornado and formed the shape of a human. The figure was blurry and had a mysterious aura, but its body was emitting an unimaginable negative force: greed, anger, sadness, jealousy, hatred, narrow-mindedness, betrayal, etc., as if it had gathered all the evilness of the heavens and earth into its body. Even the Saint King Qi that filled the Saint King Grotto heaven turned as black as ink in the blink of an eye. What the hell? Qin Nan's expression changed greatly as his left eye emitted a blinding purple glow. Mere mortals, I don't care if you're trying to defy the heavens, but you're dreaming of establishing your own existence. I'm the evil karma of the heavens and earth. You've committed a great sin, thus you shall die and belong to me. Otherwise. The human figure uttered a roar with a sharp voice, as if it was going to penetrate everything. What bullshit evil karma of the heavens and earth! A murderous aura burst out from Qin Nan's body as his right arm turned into a brilliant glow, which transformed into the heaven-shattering saber. Qin Nan reached out his left arm and grabbed the saber's hilt. He only knew. At such a crucial moment, this thing with no cultivation dared to interrupt him. It must be tired of living. If you dare to swing the saber, endless karma will descend upon you, endless curses will befall you. You will be rejected by the heavens and earth for the rest of your life, suffering endless misfortune. Your parents will die a horrible death, your home will be destroyed, your wife will betray you, your son will poison you. The black figure said with a hoarse voice, as if it was trying to place all the misfortune of the world onto Qin Nan. How bold! Qin Nan was infuriated as he slashed forward, shattering the figure into pieces. To his surprise, after the figure was shattered, a wisp of the most evil black chi in the world turned into a skeleton, which uttered a strange laugh and charged at Qin Nan's head. Endless karma, endless curses, really. It had arrived. How bold! I'm the bearer of the divine battle spirit. How dare you disrespect the evil karma of the heavens and earth? Qin Nan's black hair danced wildly. For some reason, his hair was engulfed in a blazing flame, causing it to turn purple. His eyes emitted a sharp glow as he stared at the evil karma of the heavens and earth, as if he were staring at the heavens and earth. A formless, ancient aura rippled out from his body. At that instant, Qin Nan's fearless will reached its limit, as firm as a boulder, as firm as a mountain. He did not believe in the evil karma of the heavens and earth. Nor did he believe in the endless curses. He had a saber in his hand. If the heavens and earth dared to harm him, he would slaughter the heavens and earth when he achieved the martial god realm. The black skeleton let out a cry of agony as if it had encountered a terrifying presence, before it exploded on its own. The entire sacred emperor space was clear. Master has returned. At that instant, the left eye, left arm, and right arm floated in the air and uttered a chant. The three body parts gathered and unleashed a stream of the force of the divine god of battle. The force of the divine god of battle formed the flesh, while the evil karma of the heavens and earth tested his will. He had overcome the evil karma of the heavens and earth. In other words, Qin Nan's will had reached a certain level. At this very moment, the point was fully activated. The character battle in Qin Nan's dantian was fully formed. Boom reads. Qin Nan's aura experienced a tremendous change, surpassing the law-defying martial highness realm, surpassing the heavens and earth, as he had become the true self of the heavens and earth. At the same time. Chapter 730. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 732. The Heavenly Fortune Talisman turns into a spirit. All of the pressure in the Saint King's paradise returned to normal. Marshmallow-79XS. Qin Nan's purple hair danced in the wind. His left eye emitted a mysterious purple glow. His aura was similar to an ordinary person's at one moment, yet powerful and terrifying at the next, constantly changing. I've even forgotten all the martial arts I've learned before. Qin Nan mumbled to himself. The moment he achieved the divine battle martial highness realm, all the martial arts he had learned before, including the heavenly accumulating strike, had completely disappeared from his mind. He could remember the names of the martial arts, but he could not recall their details. In other words, he had embarked on a brand new path of martial arts. However, my left eye, left arm, and right arm can now use the heaven-shattering saber. Qin Nan's lips curled upward into a sharp grin. His left eye, left arm, and right arm could now be used. That being said, the power of the three body parts of the divine god of battle was immeasurable. It was impossible for Qin Nan to fully unleash their power, unless the force of the divine god of battle in Qin Nan's body was sufficient. Currently, He only had a single stream of the force of the divine god of battle in his body. The force of the martial highness realm can still unleash the power of the three body parts of the divine god of battle. However, if I were to use the force of the divine god of battle, the power would be stronger. Qin Nan mumbled. Starting a brand new path of martial arts meant having a brand new way of fighting. My aura is still unstable. I shall cultivate in the sacred emperor chamber for a while to stabilize my cultivation before coming out. Qin Nan calmed his thoughts and sat down with his legs crossed. He unleashed the divine battle spirit. The sacred emperor qi in the sacred emperor chamber was fully absorbed, resulting in a terrifying aura and rare phenomena. Reading in full time gradually passed. 2 months were gone in the blink of an eye. In the past 2 months, the news of the Tao-seeking mountain being wiped out gradually came to an end. That being said, everyone was paying close attention to Qin Nan. After learning that Qin Nan had left the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, many rogue cultivators speculated that Qin Nan must have gone to recover his strength. The destruction of the lightning tribulation did not mean that there was no hope. As for whether or not he could recover, some people were hopeful, while others didn't believe it at all. What was worth mentioning was that the geniuses on the hidden dragon ranking gradually became active. Sima Kong continued to steal from cultivators and treasures of forbidden grounds, thus earning him a great reputation. Jade Rakshasa boarded Wanxiang Tower's boat of marriage and detonated the pool of marriage. She obtained the inheritance of the boat of marriage, and her cultivation base soared. The other geniuses were also constantly tempering themselves and seeking opportunities. The top 3 geniuses of the hidden dragon ranking seemed to have vanished into thin air. At this moment, in the demonic eyes forest, in the Sage King's abode, Qin Nan's eyes sprang open as his aura calmed down and changed according to his will. If he was unwilling, even a peak martial sacred realm cultivator or the martial ancestor would not be able to peek through his cultivation. The divine battle martial highness realm had undergone a complete transformation. Ugh, crap! An awkward expression appeared on Qin Nan's face. As a first-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit, the absorption rate of the divine battle spirit was significantly better than a 10th-grade D-ranked martial spirit. Currently, only a small amount of qi was left in the Sage King's abode. If the 2 martial ancestor were to wake up, he would surely be enraged and fall out with Qin Nan. Let's leave first. With a flicker, Qin Nan's figure exited the Sage King's abode with his left eye emitting a glow. In the past, these forbidding auras might have been powerful, but now, they were completely useless against him. Now that the heavenly fortune path has yet to be activated, should I head to the Mu clan? Qin Nan stood in the demonic eyes forest and fell into deep thought. As he had achieved the divine battle martial highness realm, unless the heavenly fortune path was activated, it would be meaningless for him to stay in the eastern continent. His only option was to head to the Mu clan, which was the ruler of the eastern continent. Damn it, I'm a martial ancestor after all. Would it kill me to take a look? Why did you have to knock me out? At that instant, the disordered ocean martial ancestor slowly woke up as if it was predestined. The crimson blood martial ancestor wore a gloomy expression. Ever since he had met Qin Nan, he had felt like his dignity as a martial ancestor no longer existed. Qin Nan, why did you leave the Sage King's abode? Where's the heaven-shattering saber? Did you refine it? The crimson blood martial ancestor asked as he suddenly realized something. I've left. Qin Nan smilingly said, I've refined it too. The 2 martial ancestor were astounded. Their will resided in Qin Nan's dantian. They could also enter Qin Nan's divine sense, but the heaven-shattering saber was nowhere to be found. Furthermore, Qin Nan was not carrying it on his back either. Did he keep it in his storage bag? Upon having this thought, the 2 martial ancestor could feel their lips twitching. Your aura. The 2 martial ancestor were even more astounded when they realized something. They could not even sense Qin Nan's cultivation. The two took a closer look at Qin Nan. Although they could not see through his cultivation, their instincts told them that Qin Nan was extremely terrifying. It was obvious that something unbelievable had happened to him after refining the heaven-shattering saber. The disordered ocean martial ancestor's eyes were filled with jealousy as he said, "Qin Nan, I have to remind you of one thing. The heaven-shattering saber is a treasure that countless experts in the Kanglan continent would go crazy for. Many martial monarchs have even fought against one another for it, which even involved martial gods. It's fine if you're in the eastern continent now, but if you're in the Mu clan or the middle continent, you have to be careful. If you use it, blood will be spilled, and those who see it will die. Otherwise, it will be a great disaster." Qin Nan was startled, before he nodded with a stern expression. He was not afraid, but if he were to attract the attention of a terrifying expert like the martial ancestor or Emperor Wu, it would be a great disaster for him. It seemed like he was not allowed to use the heaven-shattering saber under normal circumstances. "Thanks for the reminder." Qin Nan brought his fists together in a serious tone. Even though his cultivation had improved and he had achieved the divine battle martial highness realm, his nature as a human would not change. The disordered ocean martial ancestor nodded in a dignified manner, but he harumphed coldly in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he was worried that Qin Nan would attract a strong enemy and put them both in danger, he would not be so kind as to remind him. However, at that instant, a scorching sensation could be felt all of a sudden. Qin Nan was startled. He quickly scanned his surroundings and discovered that it was the heavenly fortune talisman that he had forgotten about for a long time. When the heavenly fortune talisman entered his body and absorbed the chaos chi, it had fallen into a deep slumber. Why was it awake now? Qin Nan took a closer look and his eyes flickered with astonishment. In the summoning talisman, he could see a unique life form being born. Squeak! With a crisp chirp, a surge of boundless life force suddenly blossomed. The heavenly fortune talisman exploded into countless light dots, which gathered together and formed the figure of a rat. This is Chapter 731. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 733. The Storm Moves Again. As the light faded away, a completely golden rat was formed. Its eyes were especially lively, and there seemed to be some mysterious runes in the depths of its eyes. That was fast. Squeak, squeak. The golden mouse uttered a laugh as it leapt out from its body and landed on Qin Nan's head, before lying down with a pleasant expression. F***K A heavenly fortune mouse. It's a heavenly fortune mouse. The two martial progenitors collected their thoughts and cursed with disbelief on their faces. They had heard rumors about the heavenly fortune mouse, but they never thought it would be born after the heavenly fortune talisman had absorbed the chaos chi. Heavenly fortune mouse, what's that? Qin Nan was startled. He had just glimpsed at the golden mouse with his left eye, and to his surprise, there were some ancient runes inside its body that even he could not read. Therefore, it was obvious that this heavenly fortune mouse was nothing ordinary. This heavenly fortune mouse is a rare creature of the heavenly fortune tribe. I'm not too sure about its exact function, but I'm sure something good will happen once you possess the heavenly fortune mouse. The two martial progenitors blurted out as they glanced at Qin Nan with jealousy. Why was this guy taking all the benefits? The heavenly fortune mouse cast a disdainful glance at them as if it were saying, "Two martial ancestors? You haven't even seen the heavenly fortune mouse before. Something good will happen?" Qin Nan frowned before his frown disappeared. Either way, it was not a bad thing to have the heavenly fortune mouse. Stinky mouse. What's with that look? The two martial ancestors were not happy to begin with, and their faces were filled with anger after seeing the heavenly fortune mouse's reaction. To their surprise, the heavenly fortune mouse ignored them and leapt into the air before Qin Nan. It brought its fists together and began to squeak, as if it were trying to say something in a respectful manner. Cotton candy, are you saying, open the heavenly fortune path? Qin Nan was stunned. He did not know why, but the heavenly fortune mouse seemed to be very close to him. Just by looking at its movements, he could tell its carelessness. The two martial ancestors shuddered upon hearing this. Opening the heavenly fortune path? Are you kidding me? After all, there was still some time before the heavenly fortune path was opened. The heavenly fortune mouse hurriedly nodded. Its eyes even seemed to be asking, should I open it? Qin Nan's eyes suddenly emitted a golden glow. Open the path of heavenly secrets. Without a doubt, the top 3 geniuses of the Hidden Dragon ranking, the other geniuses, and the authorities would all gather at the same place, resulting in a great gathering. The heavenly fortune path is extremely mysterious. Just a single talisman is enough to attract countless geniuses to compete for it. Now that he had opened it and entered to explore, it was worth it. I have become a war god martial saint and have yet to fight. Qin Nan quickly made up his mind and nodded at the heavenly fortune mouse. Squeak! The heavenly fortune mouse was overjoyed as if it had just found some incredible treasure. It jumped and landed on Qin Nan's head. It opened its mouth and spat out a mystical golden glow into the rift at an unbelievable pace. This, the two martial ancestors stared with their eyes open wide. Was the heavenly fortune path going to be opened just like that? Qin Nan's lips curled upward upon seeing this. Top 3 on the Hidden Dragon ranking. I shall have a try this time and see how strong you are. Meanwhile, in the southern part of the Upper District's eastern continent. In the southern part of the eastern continent stood a place called the Crimson Lunar Tribe. The Crimson Lunar Tribe was relatively large, as every member of the tribe was born with a crimson crescent moon on their foreheads, hence the name. As the Crimson Lunar Tribe was backed by the Heavenly Fortune Path, it was even stronger than the Luan clan of the Crimson Blood Ocean. However, for countless years, the people of the Crimson Lunar Tribe had never ventured out from their territory. They were only active within a 10,000 li radius. As such, the Crimson Lunar Tribe was not attacked by the 4 great factions due to their seclusion. They even used the Heavenly Fortune Path to establish a good relationship with the 4 great factions. Bang! All of a sudden, behind the tribe of the Crimson Lunar Tribe, a brilliant crimson glow was fired into the sky, causing the area within 1,000 li to be dyed red, as if a crimson moon was hanging in the sky. The people of the Crimson Lunar Tribe subconsciously raised their head. Their expressions changed tremendously upon seeing this. Heavenly Fortune Path. The Heavenly Fortune Path is open. What's going on? The Heavenly Fortune Path is open in advance. The entire Crimson Lunar Tribe was immersed in an uproar. Not long after, the news regarding the rare occurrence of the Heavenly Fortune Path was spread to the 2 factions like a tornado, which then spread across the entire eastern continent. The eastern continent was immersed in an uproar. The Heavenly Fortune Path is open. Tisk tsk, it's open in advance this time. There must be some kind of rare occurrence. Come, let's go and take a look. Why would we go there? We can't even enter. You idiot, since the Heavenly Fortune Path is open, the legendary Qin Nan and the top 3 geniuses on the Hidden Dragon ranking would surely be here. Don't you want to see the scene when Cheng Tiange and Qin Nan meet? Haha, you're right. The Tao-seeking mountain was destroyed by Qin Nan. Cheng Tiange would surely seek revenge from him. Let's go. What's there to say? Let's go and take a look. Meanwhile, in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, the authorities of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom and the blood-winged vermilion bird had reached a consensus. They clearly knew that since the Heavenly Fortune Path was open, Qin Nan would surely be there. Therefore, the sky-scorching ancient kingdom had to send experts to protect Qin Nan. That being said, it was not necessary for the entire kingdom to be involved. Only the blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise would be enough. The reason being that the elder of the Mu clan was supporting Qin Nan. Their only concern was to prevent the death servants and the assassins from assassinating him. Compared to the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, the Trading Alliance and the Wanxiang Pavilion were completely different. Since the two factions had formed an alliance, the Trading Alliance had been stationed at the immortal Maiden Mountain range of the Wanxiang Pavilion. If one were to glance down from above, the disciples and authorities of the immortal Maiden Mountain range were all extremely powerful. As expected, the immortal Maiden Mountain range was bustling with noise. Countless discussions resounded in the sky. Hee, I heard that Qin Nan is going to show up. I'm thinking of taking a look. Maybe he's interested in me. Silly girl, stop daydreaming. Do you think he's interested in you? Humph, junior sister Nya, Qin Nan is only a cripple now. Is he worthy of your interest? Even a cripple is better than you. Meanwhile, on a mountain in the immortal Maiden Mountain range, a woman slowly walked out from the pond. Her eyes flickered as she mumbled to herself, Qin Nan, huh? A man who is able to eliminate the Tao-seeking mountain must be quite impressive. I shall go and meet him. The woman was ranked second on the Hidden Dragon ranking, the top genius of the Wanxiang Pavilion, Murong Shui. As the entire upper district of the eastern continent was immersed in an uproar. In the westernmost region, inside a volcano, a man slowly opened his eyes. A terrifying aura was fired into the sky, causing the entire place to tremble. Qin Nan, the man murmured as his eyes flickered murderously, calmly, and ferociously. Chapter 732. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 734. Jiang Fifan, The Heavenly Fortune Path, the top forbidden area of the eastern continent. A love go little say, W. Chu access. Once, a genius had entered the path and altered his destiny, becoming a martial monarch and stirring a great chaos in the middle continent. Since then, both the factions and the geniuses placed great importance on the opening of the Heavenly Fortune Path. Meanwhile, at the Crimson Lunar Tribe, a few hours after the rare occurrence of the Heavenly Fortune Path, the entire Crimson Lunar Tribe was crowded with people, resulting in a lively scene. As such, the Crimson Lunar Tribe had no choice but to set up several checkpoints. Only those who paid a certain fee were allowed to proceed to the Heavenly Fortune Path. The reason for that was because there were simply too many people. Bang! At that instant, a terrifying aura descended upon the place, causing the faces of many experts to turn pale. The newcomers were none other than the leader, vice leader, supreme elder, and the rest of the authorities of the Trading Alliance. Furthermore, a young man stood to the right of the leader of the Trading Alliance. The young man wore an expressionless face and a golden robe. Although he was standing beside the authorities, his aura did not pale in comparison. In fact, he was even more mysterious. Almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than the other websites, and the updates are faster too. There are no advertisements. Jiang Fifan. It's Jiang Fifan. He's here so soon. TSK, Jiang Fifan is here. Now we're only missing the other three. Jiang Fifan, the third-ranked genius on the Hidden Dragon ranking, a peerless genius with a 10th grade D-ranked martial spirit. According to the rumors, his martial spirit was a monarch weapon, which possessed a terrifying power when unleashed. Many of the sectless cultivators felt their spirits tremble when they heard this. As everyone knew, only those with the Heavenly Fortune Talisman were allowed to enter the Heavenly Fortune Path. Since they did not have the Heavenly Fortune Talisman, they had no chance of entering the Heavenly Fortune Path. However, they were here to witness the battle between the legendary genius Qin Nan and the top 3 geniuses of the Eastern Continent. Shut up! The leader of the trading alliance harumphed as he unleashed his suppression. Many cultivators were startled, not daring to utter a single word. When the heavens and earth fell silent, the leader of the trading alliance flung his sleeves and led Jiang Fifan and the others into the inner region of the Crimson Lunar Tribe. A while later, the leader of the trading alliance and the others arrived before a lake. The lake was extremely huge, covering an area of a few thousand li. The water of the lake had a strange white color, with wisps of mist floating on it. A mysterious force was floating on the surface of the lake. No matter what he tried, he could not penetrate the mist. The name of the lake was the Heavenly Fortune Lake, and the Heavenly Fortune Path was located at the bottom of the lake. Even martial ancestor cultivators would be killed instantly if they tried to force their way in before the Heavenly Fortune Path was opened. Apart from that, there was a beach beside the Heavenly Fate Lake. The sand on the beach was also strangely white. Unlike the sand on the Heavenly Fate Lake, the sand was emitting a gentle light. It was exactly the same color as the green jade. The beach was known as the Starry Jade Beach. Before the Heavenly Fortune Path was fully opened, many rogue cultivators and geniuses would be waiting at the Starry Jade Beach. Currently, there were over 100 rogue cultivators and geniuses gathered at the beach, including those ranked in the top 50 on the Hidden Dragon ranking. Qin Nan isn't here yet. Jiang Fifan scanned his surroundings with a disdainful look. In my opinion, there's no way he would dare to show up when the Heavenly Fortune Path is opened. Jiang Fifan did not have a good impression of Qin Nan. In fact, he hated him. The hatred was not because Qin Nan had destroyed the trading alliance, nor was it because Qin Nan had eliminated the Dao-seeking mountain, nor was it because Qin Nan had acquired the precious treasure from the Dao-seeking treasure vault. It was because he had been cultivating in seclusion for a long time, and had finally mastered the martial art to shock the entire Eastern continent. However, as he was preparing to shock the entire Eastern continent, the news about Qin Nan's achievements had already spread across the entire Eastern continent. This guy had already turned into a cripple. Why was everyone talking about him? They should be talking about him, Jiang Fifan. Jiang Fifan, don't underestimate Qin Nan when the time comes. The leader of the trading alliance warned after seeing Jiang Fifan's reaction. That's enough. He's only a cripple now. What's there to be afraid of? Even Cheng Tiange would not stand a chance against me now. Jiang Fifan placed his hands behind himself and glanced at the Heavenly Fortune Lake in the distance. A shocking prideful aura was emitted from his body, as if he were looking down on the crowd. The leader of the trading alliance wore a helpless look. This Jiang Fifan was perfect in every aspect, but he was too prideful, thinking that he was the strongest genius. The leader of the trading alliance took a deep breath and said, "Let's not talk about that for now. The opening of the Heavenly Fortune Path is a great opportunity for you. You must make use of it." The eyes of the leader of the trading alliance flickered with a hint of viciousness. He was a vengeful person, thus he would never forget the great damage that Qin Nan had brought to the trading alliance. That being said, now that Qin Nan was supported by the elder of the Mu clan, there was no way he could harm Qin Nan. However, if Jiang Fifan were to alter his destiny and acquire the fortunate encounter of the Heavenly Fortune Path, he would be able to soar into the sky. By then, even the elder of the Mu clan would not be able to protect Qin Nan. "Alliance Master, you're all here so early." At that instant, a gentle female voice could be heard. The crowd on the shore immediately turned their heads toward the voice. Following a glimpse, many of the male cultivators could feel their hearts racing. The leader, the vice-leader, and the supreme elder of the Wanxiang Pavilion had all arrived. Two young women stood quietly beside the big shot. Their long hair fluttered in the wind, and their clothes fluttered in the wind. The leader of the group was a young woman. Her face was fair, and her facial features were exquisite. Her eyes were watery, as if they were emitting all kinds of divine light. Just one look at her would make one lose himself in her eyes. The other was a young woman. She had a beautiful face and an enchanting figure. Her pretty face was expressionless, and she gave off a cold vibe. The auras of the two women were completely different. One was fiery while the other was icy cold. Morong Shui. Morong Shui is here. She's still as gorgeous as ever. I feel like I'm about to lose my soul just by looking at her face. If I could make Morong Shui smile, I would have no regrets in my life. Yuluosha beside Morong Shui is not bad at all. She's icy, I like it. The atmosphere on the Star Jade Beach instantly heated up. Even the female cultivators could not help but reveal envious looks in front of the two women. Morong Shui, first ranked at the Wanxiang Pavilion, second ranked on the Hidden Dragon ranking. Yuluosha, second ranked at the Wanxiang Pavilion, sixth ranked on the Hidden Dragon ranking. Jiang Fifan's heart could not help but race when he saw the two women. His eyes flickered with excitement. These two women were indeed beautiful. With such temperament and talent, they were both qualified to be his Dao companions. Having this thought, Jiang Fifan's lips curled upward as he walked toward Morong Shui and Yuluosha in an elegant manner. He was very confident that it would be a piece of cake for him to subdue these two women. However, at that instant a shocked voice could be heard. The people of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom are here. Hearing this, the atmosphere of the place stiffened instantly. Even the leaders of the Trading Alliance and the Wanxiang Pavilion clenched their fists tightly. The sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Qin Nan. Chapter 733. The Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? I'm here to provide you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 735. The purple-haired young man roar. Following two shocking roars, the blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise charged forward with extraordinary auras. Marshmallow accessed. Below them, Longhu, Luanfeng, Di Fengyun, and the rest of the geniuses stood together with sharp gazes. Previously at the Dao-seeking treasure vault, they were insignificant. Now they were the center of attention. I don't see Qin Nan anywhere. I heard that he's gone out and hasn't returned yet. He must be recovering from his injuries. I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to be after recovering from his injuries, and whether he can match the three geniuses. The eyes of the rogue cultivators flickered with disappointment as they spoke. The leader of the Trading Alliance and the rest withdrew their gazes too. Since Qin Nan was not around, the rest of the geniuses of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom were not worthy of their attention. Kami, such a gorgeous woman. Longhu's eyes widened when he saw Morong Shui and Yuluosha as soon as he stepped forward. That being said, he already knew that Yuluosha was Zhao Feng's disguise, thus he was not interested in her. The other geniuses of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom were stunned too, except for Luanfeng, who twisted her lips disdainfully. It seems like Qin Nan won't show himself until the very last moment. Morong Shui giggled and said, "Junior sister I hope you won't compete with me when the time comes." While saying this, Morong Shui's eyes flickered with a hint of fear. Currently, this Yuluosha at the Wanxiang Pavilion had become a threat to her position. That being said, Morong Shui strongly believed that once they entered the heavenly fortune path, the gap between them would be widened. "Senior sister, you're kidding." Yuluosha blushed. Morong Shui's eyes flickered. It was her first time seeing Yuluosha blushing because of a man. It seemed like Yuluosha was interested in Qin Nan after all. Quick update, the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. You must give me a good review. A cold light flashed in Jiang Fifan's eyes as he listened to the two women's conversation. Even though his original body was here, the two women didn't pay any attention to him. But this Qin Nan, who hadn't even arrived yet, actually attracted so much attention from the two women. "Why, the two of you. I am Jiang Fifan. At that instant, Jiang Fifan took a step forward and brought his fists together in an extraordinary manner. At this moment, everyone's gazes were attracted to him. Jade Rakshasa nodded slightly without saying a word. Murong Shui glanced at him from head to toe and said with a rare indifferent tone, "So it's Taoist Jiang." Jiang Fifan's body stiffened. He, who was ranked third on the Hidden Dragon ranking and possessed a monarch weapon martial spirit, was being treated in such a manner? Jiang Fifan, you're still the same as before, full of yourself. Don't tell me you think you're able to impress the two women? At that instant, a calm voice could be heard. A tall man slowly walked over. The temperature of the entire Star Jade Beach suddenly rose. The man was none other than the first-ranked on the Hidden Dragon ranking, Qing Tiange. Qing Tiange! He's here too. This is going to be interesting. The crowd was astounded, as this Qing Tiange was the top core disciple of the Tao-seeking mountain. Qing Tiange, you dare to come to the heavenly fortune path. Die. As expected, the blood-winged vermilion bird uttered a roar as its flames surged toward the heavens and earth in a terrifying manner. Its giant claw slashed at Qing Tiange's head with all its might. Blood-winged vermilion bird, why bother picking on Qing Tiange when the Tao-seeking mountain is already eliminated? At that instant, the leader of the Trading Alliance and the leader of the Wanxiang Pavilion burst out laughing as a terrifying sacred aura was emitted, forming a sacred glow that nullified the blood-winged vermilion bird's attack. Humph! The faces of the blood-winged vermilion bird and the Kingdom Protector Black Tortoise turned cold. Now that the authorities of the Trading Alliance and the Wanxiang Pavilion were here, it would be difficult for them to kill Qing Tiange. As for the two factions, it was easy for them to lend Qing Tiange a hand. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Once Qing Tiange grew stronger, he would surely become the greatest enemy of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Qing Tiange, what are you talking about? Do you really think you're undefeatable just because you're ranked first on the Hidden Dragon ranking? Jiang Fifan was enraged. Now that he had mastered the martial art, he was no longer afraid of Qing Tiange. What now? Are you planning to fight me? Qing Tiange's aura changed tremendously, as if the god of fire had just arrived. Terrifying blue flames engulfed his figure as a terrifying suppression swept the surroundings. At that instant, the crowd could feel chills running down their spines, as if they were about to be melted. Afraid of you? I'm going to teach you a lesson today. Jiang Fifan uttered a roar as a terrifying glow was emitted from his figure. The leader of the Trading Alliance was startled. Qin Nan was not here yet, but these two were already fighting each other. However, he did not intervene, as these two were not idiots. The heavenly fortune path had yet to be activated, thus there was no need for them to fight to the death. The eyes of the surrounding rogue cultivators glistened. It was not a bad idea to witness the battle between the top three geniuses. At that instant, whoosh! The heavenly fortune lake in front of the crowd began to ripple as if a strong wind had swept past it. Waves were formed on the surface of the lake. There was no shocking aura, nor was there any rare phenomenon. There was only an obscure ancient aura spreading out from the lake. It felt like the heavens and earth had returned to the ancient era. The heavenly fortune path is about to be activated. The eyes of the authorities flickered with excitement. Why isn't Qin Nan here yet? The blood-winged vermilion bird and the Kingdom Protector Black Tortoise murmured as they scanned their surroundings. In addition to them, many of the geniuses were observing the situation too. Could it be Qin Nan was not coming? Godly treasure fist! Jiang Fifan uttered a roar as he was not distracted by the rare occurrence of the heavenly fortune lake. Instead, a shocking glow was emitted from the tip of his fist, as if it had transformed into a rare artifact, before he hurled a punch at Qing Tiange's head. Child's play. Qing Tiange's expression remained the same as he stomped his foot and transformed into a fiery glow, dodging Jiang Fifan's attack. The move was known as the fiery glow escape, one of Qing Tiange's strongest moves. According to the rumors, when 10 geniuses with the same cultivation had tried to kill Qing Tiange, he had managed to nullify their attacks with the same move, leaving him unharmed. "Don't run away if you dare," Jiang Fifan snapped as he stomped his foot. Countless glows were emitted from his feet, increasing his speed tremendously. Their figures instantly became entangled with one another as their attacks collided. Powerful gusts of wind were emitted. The surrounding rogue cultivators were dumbfounded by the sight of this. It was undeniable that the difference between them and the top 3 geniuses on the Hidden Dragon ranking was like the difference between the heavens and earth. Jiang Fifan was aware that it was not the right time to use his full strength, but when he saw Qing Tiange's calm expression with a hint of disdain, he could not help but feel enraged. Qing Tiange's figure dashed into the distance all of a sudden. Jiang Fifan was about to chase after him when his vision turned dark. It turned out that a rogue cultivator who had just arrived had intervened in their battle, blocking his path. "Piss off!" Jiang Fifan uttered a roar as he threw a punch forward while emitting a mystical glow. He just so happened to have a stomach full of anger and nowhere to vent it. Bang! A loud explosion took place. Jiang Fifan was slightly taken aback. He felt as if his punch had landed on an enormous mountain. Not only did his opponent not move in the slightest, the recoil even caused his arm to go numb. Qing Tiange halted in his tracks too. The other geniuses were startled too, as they did not expect the battle between 2 geniuses to involve someone else. "Mister, I don't think I'm your enemy," a voice could be heard. Chapter 734. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 736. The lake cracks, the ancient path emerges. Qin Nan? Haha, you're finally here. The blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise burst out laughing after collecting their thoughts. 79-Brother Nan. Platoon Leader. Greetings, Platoon Leader. The eyes of Di Fengyun and the others flickered as they blurted out. The rogue cultivators and authorities collected their thoughts. Their eyes flickered with astonishment. Qin Nan was here. In an instant, all eyes were on the purple-haired young man. Their gazes were filled with doubt, curiosity, and curiosity. Their gazes were complicated. Qin Nan's cultivation, the leader of the Trading Alliance, the leader of the Wanxiang Pavilion, and the authorities exchanged glances with one another as their hearts sank. This was because they discovered that regardless of whether they used their eye techniques or other techniques, they were unable to see through it at all. Could it be that Qin Nan had recovered his cultivation? The authorities clenched their fists tightly. They had witnessed Qin Nan's strength. "So you're Qin Nan?" Jiang Fifan was startled. He initially thought the person was just an ordinary rogue cultivator, but it turned out to be the person he hated the most. "That's me, who are you?" After saying this, Qin Nan scanned the crowd and glanced at Qing Tiange, Murong Shui, and the others. He immediately made up his mind. Jiang Bailan and Sima Kong had yet to appear. As for the top 3 geniuses on the Hidden Dragon ranking, their cultivations were quite outstanding, as they had all reached the peak of the law-defying Martial Highness realm. Apart from that, they also had other capabilities. Qing Tiange, in particular, had a ferocious force of flames hidden in his body, which was not to be underestimated. Interesting. Qin Nan mumbled to himself with a hint of disappointment. Although the top 3 geniuses on the Hidden Dragon ranking were powerful, they were not enough to trigger his battle intent, unless they were to team up against him. "So you are Qin Nan. Even the Tao-seeking mountain was destroyed. I, Jiang Fifan, would like to see how strong you are." At that instant, Jiang Fifan collected his thoughts and uttered a roar. His figure emitted a mystical glow. "Green Lotus Sword Throne. Destroy everything." He spat out and summoned a throne made of a blue lotus. It rose into the air with a strong monarch aura. This treasure was close to the level of a half-monarch weapon. Voila! The throne shone brightly, bringing with it an endless amount of sword qi, pressing down on Qin Nan's head. At that instant both Qing Tiange, Murong Shui, and the rest of the geniuses stared with their eyes wide open, as they realized that they could not see through Qin Nan's cultivation. Love go little save Kunao that Jiang Fifan had helped him. He could see if Qin Nan had recovered. Qin Nan's eyes instantly turned cold. This guy had attacked him twice in a row. Did he really think he was someone to be messed with? Piss off! Qin Nan reached out his right hand and slapped at the green lotus sword throne. Bang! The entire blue lotus sword throne was struck by a destructive force, causing the sword intent to dissipate instantly. The entire artifact was shattered into pieces and struck Jiang Fifan's figure. Jiang Fifan's eyes widened as he immediately set up a defensive barrier. Despite that, his figure was still sent flying by the impact. How powerful! Qing Tiange could feel his scalp turning numb. He clearly felt that the effortless slap had awakened a ferocious beast, causing his heart to race. Murong Shui's pretty face also turned slightly pale, as if she had encountered a terrible existence. She quietly took a small step back, and in the next breath, she came back to her senses. Her beautiful eyes revealed an astonishing splendor. The authorities and the rogue cultivators were astounded. Qin Nan had recovered his cultivation. Besides, it was extremely terrifying. Everyone knew that this was Jiang Fifan, ranked third on the Hidden Dragon ranking, whose cultivation had reached the peak law-defying Martial Highness realm. Even though the green lotus sword throne he had executed was not his strongest attack, it was still shattered by Qin Nan's slap. How significant was that? How terrifying would it be if Qin Nan were to attack with his full strength? Whoosh! Qin Nan suddenly raised his head and glanced at the leader of the trading alliance in the sky. His left eye emitted a strange purple glow. The leader of the trading alliance was startled. At that instant, he felt like he had been seen through. I still can't defeat this guy. Qin Nan withdrew his gaze. The leader of the trading alliance was a peak martial sacred realm cultivator. Although his cultivation was terrifying, the difference between their strength was still too great. Otherwise, he would definitely settle the score with the leader of the trading alliance before the heavenly fortune path was activated. As expected of Qin Nan. Such a terrifying cultivation. If he were to fight Qing Tiange, who would win? Not sure. It was the right decision to come to the heavenly fortune path. TSK, I really hope they would fight now. All the rogue cultivators regained their senses, and their eyes were filled with splendor. Some of them had initially thought that it would be impossible for Qin Nan to recover his cultivation in just a few months' time. However, it seemed like reality had given them a slap in the face. Nothing was impossible when it came to Qin Nan. This man was a legend. Damn it! Jiang Fifan steadied himself. His qi and blood surged, and his face darkened to the extreme. He had been sent flying by Qin Nan's slap in front of the crowd. How could he possibly save his face? However, as he recalled the slap, his heart skipped a beat. His instincts told him that if he were to confront Qin Nan on his own, he would surely be trampled to pieces. However, at that instant a rare occurrence took place. Bang! A shocking explosion took place above the heavenly fortune lake, shocking the crowd on the starry jade shore, who immediately glanced toward it. Qin Nan immediately saw the surface of the lake being split apart by a giant hand. The surface of the lake was split in half, resulting in a shocking sight. The crowd was utterly dumbfounded. An ancient road that extended from the bottom of the pitch-black abyss appeared above the mouth of the lake. The road was straight and several hundred feet wide. It gave off an ancient and majestic feeling, as if one would be able to enter the bottomless abyss by stepping on this road. Buzz! On the ancient path, a ball of light shone. It instantly spread out over 10 meters, forming a small formation. Although the formation was not large, the aura it emitted was extremely terrifying. Even martial sages would not dare to touch it, or they would die without a doubt. After passing through the formation, one would be able to step onto the path and enter the first forbidden area of the eastern continent, the Heavenly Fortune Path. The Heavenly Fortune Path was fully activated. Squeak. Chapter 735. Geniuses Remember Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 737. The display of the Heavenly Fortune Mouse, the Heavenly Fortune Path, has appeared. The authorities were astounded as they glanced at Qin Nan, Qing Tiange, and the others. 79XS. Only these 4 were allowed to enter the Heavenly Fortune Path. Let's enter the Heavenly Fortune Path first. With a flicker, Qing Tiange's figure transformed into a flame and landed in front of the formation. A talisman sprang into the sky from his figure, emitting an ancient aura, which turned out to be the Heavenly Fortune Talisman. With the help of the Heavenly Fortune Talisman, they would be able to enter the Heavenly Fortune Path. Murong Shui glanced at Qin Nan and pondered, before she too arrived before the formation. Humph! Jiang Fifan twisted his lips as his figure swiftly moved forward. At that instant, the leader of the Trading Alliance and the leader of the Wanxiang Pavilion took a deep breath. The strength that Qin Nan had displayed was only the tip of the iceberg, causing them to feel extremely heavy. Their only hope now was the Heavenly Fortune Path. Only by entering the path and altering their destinies would they be able to eliminate Qin Nan. Qing Tiange, Murong Shui, Jiang Fifan, the 3 of you must succeed. Let's go in and take a look. Although Qin Nan was slightly disappointed by the strength of the 3 geniuses, it was not a bad thing to enter the Heavenly Fortune Path, since it had appeared. They might be able to find some fortunate encounters to improve their strength and rank up to the martial sacred realm. Kid, keep it up. The blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise were not worried at all. They were filled with anticipation. What would Qin Nan do this time? However, at that instant, a piercing sound could be heard all of a sudden. A golden glow was fired from Qin Nan's figure at a shocking speed. Even the authorities could only see a golden mouse flying toward the 3 geniuses before they could react. What the hell is that? Qing Tiange, Murong Shui, and Jiang Fifan were just about to enter the formation when the sudden change took place. They immediately reacted and executed their martial arts, preparing to execute powerful attacks. Yeah. The golden rat grinned. With a flicker of its feet, it arrived in front of the 3 geniuses and inhaled deeply. Full-text reading. A shocking sight took place. The 3 Heavenly Fortune Talismans seemed to be pulled by something. They broke free from the control of the 3 geniuses and landed in front of the golden mouse. The 3 geniuses were all stunned. The golden rat opened its tiny mouth and bit on the Heavenly Secret Talisman at lightning speed. The 3 Heavenly Secret Talismans buzzed as if they were resisting violently. However, it was to no avail. In less than a breath's time, all the talismans were swallowed up by the golden rat. At this moment, the entire world fell silent. The 3 geniuses were dumbfounded. All the cultivators were dumbfounded. What was going on? The Heavenly Secret Talisman was actually eaten by this golden rat? Even Qin Nan was startled, as he did not expect the Heavenly Fortune Mouse to eat the Heavenly Fortune Talisman. A strange atmosphere began to spread. Love go little say, Netwaku. The same question popped up in the minds of the crowd. The Heavenly Fortune Talisman had been eaten. How were the 3 geniuses going to enter the Heavenly Fortune Path? How bold! How bold! Son of a bitch! At that instant, the 3 geniuses collected their thoughts. Their eyes were spitting flames as a terrifying godly glow was emitted from their backs, while a boundless murderous intent filled the sky. Bang! The leader of the trading alliance and the rest of the authorities were startled. A terrifying aura burst out from their bodies. Their hearts were bleeding. How precious was the heavenly fortune talisman, and it was eaten just like that. How were the three geniuses going to alter their destinies now? At that instant, a terrifying murderous aura filled the space, as if countless thunderbolts were about to descend upon the place. Before Qin Nan could react, the heavenly fortune mouse calmly entered the formation with a kick. Its pair of round eyes were filled with disdain and provocation, as if it were trying to say, "This is what I did. Come and beat me up if you dare." At that instant, it was as if countless body immobilizing techniques had been executed simultaneously. The figures of the authorities and the geniuses stiffened. The attacks that they were about to execute came to a halt. Some even groaned as they suffered from the backlash. The reason being, they couldn't attack. The formation was protecting the heavenly fortune path. Even if a martial saint expert were to attack, they would be instantly annihilated. Squeak, squeak. Seeing the reactions of the crowd, the heavenly fortune mouse burst out laughing while rolling on the ground. However, its figure soon stiffened as it straightened its face and sat down on the ground. A golden glow was emitted from its body, resulting in a tremendous suppression. At that instant, the faces of the authorities and geniuses were filled with excitement. Now, what should they do? Qin Nan, it's you. The mouse came out from your body. Jiang Fifan swiftly reacted and clenched his teeth. His eyes emitted a shocking murderous intent as he locked his gaze onto Qin Nan's figure. What? Qin Nan? Qin Nan, what the hell is that thing? Return the heavenly fortune talisman at once. Hearing Jiang Fifan's words, the authorities and geniuses recalled the scene in their minds, causing their figures to emit terrifying murderous intents. The eyes of the leader of the trading alliance in particular turned bloodshot. The other rogue cultivators collected their thoughts and inhaled deeply. Their gazes toward Qin Nan were filled with respect. This man was like a god, able to devour the heavenly fortune talisman of the three geniuses. What now? Are you trying to start a battle? A loud roar could be heard as the blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise rose into the air and faced the crowd without backing off. They were left speechless in their hearts, as they did not expect Qin Nan to stir up such a huge commotion. Qin Nan remained calm as he sensed the overwhelming murderous intent. He spread his hands and said, "I didn't expect this to happen either." Hearing this, the authorities and the geniuses felt like their hearts were being stabbed with a knife. The golden mouse was obviously released from your body. And now, you dare to say that it had nothing to do with you? Qin Nan, even if you have the support of the elder of the Mu clan, if you don't hand over the heavenly fortune talisman today, I swear I'll kill you. The leader of the trading alliance snapped. The three geniuses could only alter their destinies by entering the heavenly fortune path. It was also the only hope for the Wanxiang Pavilion and the trading alliance to rise. Now that all hope was gone, why would they care so much about it? At that instant, a great battle was about to take place. However, at that instant, the heavenly fortune mouse in the formation underwent a tremendous change. Bang! A brilliant golden glow was fired into the sky from the heavenly fortune mouse's body, which transformed into countless golden dragons, phoenixes, and other beasts that uttered roars in the sky, shaking the area within 100,000 li. Chapter 736. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? Shua Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 738. The Activation of the Heavenly Fortune, the Decree of the Mu Clan. What's going on? The crowd's attention was attracted by the sudden change. Almost every book you want to read is here. It's more stable than the average website, and the updates are faster too. It's all text with no advertisements. The updates are so fast. Qin Nan squinted his eyes. His instincts told him that the birth of the Heavenly Fortune Mouse would result in an unbelievable change to the Heavenly Fortune path. As he thought, whoosh! From the center of the lake, a ray of bright white light soared into the sky and turned into a white giant a few hundred zhang tall standing in the air. The Heavenly Fortune path is activated. The cycle of reincarnation. The ancient path is vast, and the master of the Heavenly Fortune path is chosen. From now on, within 2 hours, all cultivators below the martial sacred realm and above the martial dominator realm will be able to enter the Heavenly Fortune path. Each of the 4 sentences felt like it was descending from the clouds onto the ground, resulting in a thunderous explosion. Every beast, rogue cultivator, and genius within 100 li could hear it, resulting in a deafening sound. Buzz. A shocking sight took place. The enormous Heavenly Fortune lake instantly evaporated, resulting in a vapor that filled the entire sky within the blink of an eye, causing it to turn pale white. The ground at the bottom of the lake was covered in a strange black color, which extended as far as the eye could see. Rumble! A series of shocking explosions took place once again. It was as if the giant mouth at the center of the lake was being pulled to the sides by a giant hand. It expanded from its original length to a few hundred zhang wide. The ancient path became wider, leading deep into the ground, as if it were leading to an abyss. On the other side of the ancient path, the formation seemed to have lost its power, causing it to slowly dissipate. It only lasted for an hour. The rare phenomenon came to a stop at that instant. The whole place fell into a dead silence. The leader of the trading alliance and the rest of the authorities were dumbfounded. They did not expect things to turn out this way. Whoosh! The Heavenly Fortune Mouse returned to normal and turned into a golden ray before landing on Qin Nan's shoulder. It squeaked as if it wanted Qin Nan to praise it. F***CK. The Master of Heavenly Mystery. He had to choose the Master of Heavenly Secrets. This Heavenly Fortune Mouse was the key. It's able to activate the succession of the Heavenly Fortune path. The 2 martial ancestors collected their thoughts and were astounded. Back then, when they were about to die, they stepped into the Heavenly Secrets path to fight for a chance at survival. Because of this, they knew the secret of the Heavenly Fortune path. The true succession had never been opened. Now or it was completely activated. Well done. Qin Nan's face lit up with joy. His left eye shone with a brilliant purple light. The path of Heavenly Secrets had been completely opened. This meant that any rogue cultivator below the martial sacred realm would be able to enter the Heavenly Fortune path. That way, they would be able to have a great battle when competing for the succession. Everyone knew that even if the 3 geniuses were to team up, they would not be able to trigger Qin Nan's battle intent. Now that everyone had entered the Heavenly Fortune path, wouldn't he be able to fully utilize his strength after a battle? That was the way to go. That was the way to feel excited. What's the point of snatching the hair of treasures for nothing? At the same time, the authorities on the scene had recovered from the shocking turn of events. The Heavenly Fortune path is fully activated. Ha ha ha, I can enter the Heavenly Fortune path too. Ha ha. Who would have thought I would stumble into such a great opportunity? The rogue cultivators were overjoyed. They were only here to witness the battle between the geniuses. How could they not be surprised when they finally had the chance to alter their destinies? The leader of the trading alliance, the leader of the Wanxiang Pavilion, and the rest of the authorities were overjoyed too. With so many people entering the Heavenly Fortune path, wouldn't it mean that their disciples would have a better chance of securing it? On the other hand, Jiang Fifan, Cheng Tiange, and Murong Shui wore unpleasant expressions. Initially, only 4 of them were allowed to enter the Heavenly Fortune path, not to mention that their Heavenly Fortune talismans had been devoured. It seemed like they had suffered the most from the battle. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At that instant, a few piercing sounds could be heard. Qin Nan turned his head around. It turned out that the rogue cultivators who had stayed at the Crimson Lunar Clan immediately made their way there with joyful looks. With a rough glance, there were at least a few thousand cultivators and some members of the Crimson Lunar Clan. Quick! Summon all the disciples above the martial Dominator realm and below the martial Sacred realm. The leaders of the Trading Alliance, the Wanxiang Pavilion, and the blood-winged vermilion bird immediately reacted and transmitted their thoughts. The entire Star Jade Beach had entered an unprecedented state of excitement. Following this, the news was spread to the entire eastern continent. The Heavenly Fortune Path. The Heavenly Fortune Path. The place that countless people dreamed of entering. At that instant, apart from the two great factions, countless powerful rogue cultivators were trying their best to reach the Heavenly Fortune Path within an hour. That being said, only those who were close to the Heavenly Fortune Path were able to reach it. The number of people continued to increase. Countless rogue cultivators had gathered at the same place. In the short span of an hour, the number of rogue cultivators on the Star Jade Beach had already reached 5,000. They're all experts. Qin Nan scanned the crowd with his left eye of the divine god of battle. The battle intent in his heart grew stronger as he observed their cultivation. Previously, it had been a grand occasion at the chaotic Blood Ocean too. Unfortunately, his cultivation was not strong enough last time. This time it was different. Qin Nan, well done. A pleasant voice echoed in Qin Nan's ears. Qin Nan turned his head around and saw Jiang Bailan with a grin under the black robe. She had arrived out of nowhere. Why did Jiang Bailan only show up now? Could it be that she had already predicted this? A thought crossed Qin Nan's mind as he glanced at Jiang Bailan with his left eye. This time, he immediately discovered a terrifying force of death floating inside her body. If she were to absorb the force, Jiang Bailan's cultivation would be unimaginable. Time passed bit by bit. More rogue cultivators and geniuses arrived, many of whom Qin Nan was quite familiar with. However, the scene was too chaotic. He immediately went onto the back of the Kingdom Protector Black Tortoise and waited patiently for an hour to pass. However, at that instant, a brilliant golden ray burst out from the distance and exploded upon reaching the Star Jade shore. The golden ray transformed into the word Mu with an imperious aura. The authorities and rogue cultivators were startled. They raised their heads in confusion. The character Mu? Could it be that the rare occurrence of the Heavenly Fortune Path had attracted the attention of the Mu clan? The Heavenly Fortune Path is now open, and the fortunate encounter has arrived. If anyone is willing to retrieve the precedent dream flower for me, you can head to the Mu clan, and I'll personally recruit you as my disciple. Chapter 737. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 739. Dream of Afterlife. Flower. The people at the scene were not idiot. There was only one person in the entire eastern continent who had the surname Mu, and now he was the patriarch of the Mu clan. Acquiring the precedent dream flower would grant one the chance to become the disciple of the patriarch of the Mu clan? Gasp! In the next moment, countless gasps could be heard. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. That was fast. This news was simply too shocking. After all, if one were to become the disciple of the Mu clan's patriarch, their status would undergo a tremendous change. For example, the son of an elder of the Tao-seeking mountain had dared to stop the battle. I must acquire the precedent dream flower. That's right. The treasure in the Heavenly Fortune Path, and the chance to become the disciple of the Mu clan's patriarch. I'm sure I'll be able to acquire one of them. The crowd collected their thoughts and blurted out passionately. Even the eyes of Qing Tiange and the other two geniuses were burning with passion. Every genius of the Eastern continent was eager to join the Mu clan and become its disciple. And now, the chance was right before their eyes. Even if they did not alter their destinies, it was enough to become the disciple of the patriarch of the Mu clan. At that instant, the leader of the Trading Alliance, the leader of the Wanxiang Pavilion, the blood-winged vermilion bird, and the rest of the authorities immediately communicated with their subordinates and ordered them to acquire the precedent dream flower at all costs. Only Qin Nan remained calm. In his heart, he only had one master, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. Therefore, he did not care about becoming the disciple of the Mu clan's patriarch. However, at that instant, a giant formation suddenly appeared on the starry jade shore, emitting a mysterious force. Several figures stepped out from the formation. TSK, I didn't expect the heavenly fortune path to be activated. An exclamation could be heard, which turned out to be Mu Tianxing. Apart from Mu Tianxing, there were 3 other disciples of the Mu clan whose cultivations had all reached the 3rd layer martial sacred realm. In terms of talent and cultivation alone, they were on par with Mu Tianxing. Please go here to read a book. Although there were only 4 of them, the aura of these 4 far surpassed the others on the Star Jade Beach, where geniuses gathered. It was as though they were from 2 different worlds. Mu clan. It's a disciple of the Mu clan. That person is called Mu Tianxing, I've heard of him. The crowd was dumbfounded seeing this, as their eyes were filled with a great sense of dread. Did this mean that even the disciples of the Mu clan were going to enter the heavenly fortune path this time? So, its brother Mu, the leader of the Trading Alliance, and the rest of the authorities collected their thoughts and stepped forward. Mu Tianxing and his crew wore calm looks on their faces, as they nodded slightly in response to the greetings from the leader of the Trading Alliance and the other authorities. Their prideful attitude was fully displayed. F***CK. Even the core disciples of the Mu clan are here. Jiang Fifan cursed in his heart as his face darkened. He glanced at Cheng Tiange and Murong Shui, who wore stern looks too. In terms of the ranks of their martial spirits, Mu Tianxing and his crew might not stand a chance against them. However, in terms of capabilities, strength, etc., they were on par with them. They took a deep breath. The 3 geniuses wore smiles on their faces as they approached Mu Tianxing. Either way, it was better to be polite. This was the power of the Mu clan. In the blink of an eye, the 4 disciples had become the center of attention of the crowd, as if they were stars surrounding the moon. Qin Nan, you're here too? All of a sudden, it was as if Mu Tianxing had discovered something, who ignored the authorities and the geniuses. His gaze landed onto Qin Nan's figure with a hint of disdain. Qin Nan? So he's Qin Nan? I think he's just SOSO. The other 3 disciples of the Mu clan glanced at Qin Nan with disdainful looks. At that instant, the lively starry jade shore fell silent. No one had expected the 4 disciples of the Mu clan to be so close to Qin Nan. Brothers, don't underestimate Qin Nan. He has eliminated the Tao-seeking mountain on his own, and he's quite close with Elder Miao too. Mu Tianxing said in a mocking tone as his eyes flickered coldly. Qin Nan frowned slightly. Normally, Mu Tianxing would not pick on him like this since he was aware of his close relationship with Miao Miao. Could it be that something had happened? Eliminated the Tao-seeking mountain? A disciple of the Mu clan stepped forward with a murderous look in his eyes. I would like to see what you've got. Bang! A 3rd layer martial sacred realm aura was fired into the sky. The blood-winged vermilion bird and the other 2 beasts were startled. The leader of the Trading Alliance and the rest of the authorities were excited. It was great news for them that Qin Nan was not on good terms with the 4 disciples of the Mu clan. However, at that instant, bang! A loud crash could be heard, which turned out to be the formation protecting the entrance of the ancient path being shattered. An hour had passed. Whoosh! At that instant, a strong gust of wind with an ancient aura swept toward the crowd from the end of the ancient path, causing the crowd to shudder violently. The heavenly fortune path had been activated. The heavenly fortune path is activated? Let's not waste any time here. Let's go. Mu Tianxing glanced at Qin Nan before he suppressed his cultivation with a secret technique and entered the heavenly fortune path. He was not in a rush to teach Qin Nan a lesson, as he would have plenty of chances in the future. His priority now was to retrieve the precedent dream flower and complete his father's plan. Humph, I'll let you go this time. The disciple of the Mu clan let out a hollow laugh as he too suppressed his cultivation and entered the ancient path with the other two disciples. At that instant, the crowd collected their thoughts. Let's go! The heavenly fortune path is activated. Let's go! Haha, the treasure is mine. I'm going to alter my destiny. Hee hee, in your dreams. The entire starry jade shore became lively once again. Either way, they should enter the heavenly fortune path first. This was the greatest fortunate encounter they had. Meanwhile, the leader of the trading alliance and the others let out sighs in their hearts. How nice would it be if they were to fight each other just then? Following this, a cold grin appeared on their faces. Regardless of how strong this Qin Nan's cultivation was, it was highly possible that he would die in the heavenly fortune path if he were to offend a disciple of the Mu clan. All the wind and waves had come to an end. The geniuses entered the ancient path. Such a pity, Qin Nan let out a sigh. A third-layer martial sacred realm disciple of the Mu clan was barely enough to stand a chance against him. How nice would it be if the four of them were to team up and have a great battle with him? Entering the heavenly fortune path would serve as a warm-up for him. If the people at the scene were to know his thoughts, they would be left speechless with astonishment. It appeared that Qin Nan did not even care about the four disciples of the Mu clan. Qin Nan, we'll leave them in your hands. The blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise immediately transmitted their voices to Qin Nan. Qin Nan halted in his tracks and glanced at Luan Feng, Di Fengyun, and the others. Some of them were familiar faces, while the others were unfamiliar faces. The geniuses seemed to be aware of Qin Nan's gaze, causing them to feel refreshed. In their hearts, this Qin Nan was a legend, who was on par with the disciples of the Mu clan. If you want to alter your destiny, if you want to become a legendary genius, it's all up to you. Don't rely on me. It's better for you to soar into the sky with your own strength. Following this, Qin Nan flapped his demon god's robe and entered the heavenly fortune path together with Jiang Bailan. The geniuses of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom were stunned. Even the blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise were startled. Hey, Qin Nan, wait for me. Long Hu collected his thoughts and immediately chased after them. He firmly believed that following Qin Nan would lead a good life. This guy. Chapter 738. The Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 740. The Land of Buried Souls. Looking down from the sky, tens of thousands of cultivators were like an army of 1,000. They stepped onto the ancient path and swooped down. Their momentum was vast, causing everyone to raise their eyebrows and feel their hearts tremble. A love go little say, W. Chu. That was fast. The authorities could feel their hearts skipping a beat. It all depended on the outcome. Bang! As soon as Qin Nan stepped onto the ancient path, he unleashed his speed without concealing his presence. A shocking sight took place. His figure sprang forward like a terrifying flash, overtaking the three geniuses, the disciples of the Mu clan, and the others. After a breath's time, his figure dashed forward, resulting in a strong gust of wind, which caused the crowd's cheeks to shiver. No one knew that the heavenly fortune path would be like this. Therefore, it was extremely important to seize the opportunity first. Qin Nan, wait for me. Long Hu yelled from behind. This asshole, why was he running so fast? Such speed! Almost at the same time, the expressions of all the cultivators changed at the same time. His speed alone was enough to leave them in the dust. Following this, they collected their thoughts and increased their speed. Qin Nan, that's not fair. You promised me at the start, and now you're trying to ditch me? Jiang Bailan transformed into a puff of death aura and approached Qin Nan. Her eyes flickered with astonishment. Qin Nan's cultivation was even more terrifying than she had imagined. Qin Nan did not respond. He continued to move forward at full speed. As he arrived at the bottom, his eyes flickered with astonishment. He could only see a thin barrier floating before him, as if he would arrive at a whole new world by jumping into it. Qin Nan secretly activated the demon god's robe and entered the barrier under the crowd's gaze. The disciples of the Mu clan, the three geniuses, Jiang Bailan, and the others immediately increased their speed. This, as Qin Nan jumped into the barrier, he immediately saw a whole new world. His figure fell rapidly from the sky and landed on the ground. Even with the force of the martial highness realm, he could not fly, as flying was prohibited in this space. After landing on the ground, Qin Nan quickly observed his surroundings. The sky was dark blue, the earth was dark blue, and the trees and flowers were also dark blue. There was no other color, which made people feel strange. What was even stranger was that there were no remnants or signs of life in all directions. It was as if he had arrived at a spacious grassland. Squeak, squeak! The heavenly fortune mouse on Qin Nan's shoulder jumped up and down excitedly. Sigh, it's finally here again. Although the two martial progenitors sighed, their eyes were filled with excitement. The heavenly fortune path, it seems like there's nothing here? Qin Nan frowned slightly. You'll find out soon. Hee, Qin Nan, let's team up when the time comes. I'll tell you the way, and we'll split the successions evenly after you've acquired them. The two martial ancestors chuckled. They were both martial sacred realm cultivations, thus they could not show themselves here. Otherwise they would be killed instantly. Qin Nan remained silent. At that instant, the four disciples of the Mu clan, the three geniuses, and the rest of the crowd arrived at the mysterious place. Within a few breaths' time, over 10,000 cultivators had arrived at this mysterious place. What's going on? It doesn't seem like there's anything here? Qin Nan was the first to arrive. Does he know something? The crowd was not stupid. As they scanned their surroundings, they immediately glanced at Qin Nan. They had arrived over 10 breaths' time later, thus they had no idea what had just happened. However, they did not attack recklessly, as this Qin Nan's cultivation was immeasurable. If they were to attack, they would most likely end up dead. Qin Nan, you'd better be honest with me. What was that thing here? The disciple of the Mu clan who was planning to attack Qin Nan at the Starry Jade shore stepped forward and snapped. At that instant, the crowd glanced at him with flickering eyes, but remained silent. When two tigers fought, one of them would surely be injured. They were quite pleased with the outcome. Qin Nan glanced at the disciple. The four disciples of the Mu clan had suppressed their cultivations to the law-defying martial highness realm. Even if they had some tricks up their sleeves, they were only on par with the three geniuses. What a pity, Qin Nan mumbled to himself. If his opponent was a third-layer martial sacred realm cultivator, he would have no choice but to attack. How bold! The disciple of the Mu clan instantly became enraged. It was his first time being disregarded by a genius of the Eastern continent. Did this kid really think he could do whatever he wanted just because he was close with Elder Miao? Starlight strike! The disciple of the Mu clan uttered a roar and transformed into a beam of light floating in the air, before dashing toward Qin Nan with a terrifying might. The crowd's eyes glistened as they cheered in their hearts. It would be even better if they were to engage in a battle of life and death. Qin Nan stomped his foot on the ground without raising his eyelid. Bang! The disciple of the Mu clan's eyes widened as his figure slammed into the ground, resulting in a huge pit. Qin Nan had just dodged his attack with a sway of his figure. The eyes of Mu Tianxing and the rest of the geniuses glistened. The previous attack was extremely fast and powerful, but Qin Nan had dodged it with ease? If you're going to fight me, you four should come at me at once. Otherwise, it's meaningless, Qin Nan calmly said. It was not that he was being full of himself, but it would be too boring if he were to defeat this genius with his strength alone. Therefore, it would be better if they all came at once to warm up. Together, the disciples of the Mu clan were stunned. The rest of the crowd was stunned too. Challenging 4 geniuses on his own? Wasn't this Qin Nan being too full of himself? Trying to challenge the 4 of us at once? Just you? Ridiculous, this is ridiculous. I didn't use my full strength just then. I'll show you my strength with this attack. The disciple of the Mu clan burst out laughing as he collected his thoughts. Following this, the force of the martial highness realm burst out from his body. A terrifying gust of wind swept the place. Silent stun slash. The disciple of the Mu clan uttered a roar as he sprang into the sky and executed a powerful saber art using his body as a saber, slashing downward. The terrifying saber intent tore the heavens and earth apart as it surged forward, as if it were going to destroy everything in its path. Such a powerful attack! Qing Tiange, Murong Shui, Jiang Fifan, and the rest of the geniuses were astounded. As expected of a core disciple of the Mu clan, if they were to face such a terrifying attack, they would have to put in a great effort to defend themselves. At that instant, the crowd had their attention fixed on the battle. At that instant, Qin Nan shook his head and raised his right hand, before drawing a line in front of him. Bang! A terrifying saber intent was instantly unleashed, shattering the silent stun slash into pieces with a destructive force. The remaining saber intent exploded and collided with the chest of the disciple of the Mu clan, as if it had a soul. Bang! The disciple of the Mu clan was startled. Before he could react, his figure received a powerful blow and was sent flying. He let out a groan as blood spurted out from his mouth. This attack caused him to suffer quite a bit of injury. This, Mu Tianxing and his crew, the 3 geniuses, and the rest of the crowd were astounded. They had witnessed the power of the silent stun slash with their own eyes. However, Qin Nan had shattered the saber intent with a single slash, and even injured the disciple of the Mu clan. Was this the power of a law-defying martial highness? How terrifying was Qin Nan's strength! Jiang Bailan stood at the side, as her eyes flickered with excitement. Qin Nan showed no sign of joy. Instead, his expression changed slightly as he was aware of something. There was something. Chapter 739. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 741, Crossing the Gates of Hell, Asking the King of Hell. While the crowd was immersed in astonishment, a series of explosions could be heard all of a sudden, as the vast blue land began to tremble vigorously. Dollar, cotton, flour, candy talk. That was fast. What's going on? The crowd was startled as they immediately withdrew their thoughts and lowered their heads. Whoosh! At that instant the entire place changed color. The sky turned pitch black and the ground turned pitch black. Countless eerie gusts of wind swept toward the place ferociously, causing the crowd to shiver. Bang, bang, bang! A series of explosions took place, causing the pitch-black ground to explode, revealing pitch-black holes. Skeletons in armor could be seen crawling out from the holes, each with a cultivation of at least the first-layer martial highness realm. In the blink of an eye, an army of skeletons was formed, with a total of 100,000 of them densely packed together. What's that? Qin Nan's eyes emitted a shocking purple glow. He saw that behind the army of skeletons, there were 10 pitch-black paths. These 10 paths went straight up, piercing into the sky. In the sky, there was a large palace that was faintly discernible. A martial sacred realm expert. Qin Nan immediately sensed a terrifying presence deep inside the palace, who was engulfing his aura. Qin Nan, here's your chance. Crossing the gates of hell, asking the king of hell, you'll know where the heavenly fortune is. Now you'll have to cross the skeletons and enter the palace at once. The first 1,000 people to arrive will be allowed to proceed deeper into the palace, while the rest will have to enter the weaker places. The two martial ancestors burst out laughing. The scene was extremely familiar to them. When they first came here, it had taken them quite a while to figure out the way. Sure. Jiang Bailan, Longhu, follow me. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to Jiang Bailan. He never went back on his words. The other cultivators immediately saw Qin Nan and his crew sprang into the sky and dashed toward the army of skeletons filled with murderous intent. No one noticed that among the crowd, a woman's eyes dimmed slightly. Read the full article. Yuluosha, what are you waiting for? Follow me. A voice rang out beside her. Yuluosha was startled, but her eyes soon flickered with joy. She took a step forward and followed Qin Nan closely, turning into a gust of wind. It appeared that he had not forgotten her. At least, they were still friends. Follow Qin Nan. Luan Feng and Di Fengyun uttered a roar, causing the geniuses of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom to make their moves. Qin Nan must know somethings of hell. Let's follow them. At that instant, the 4 disciples of the Mu clan, the 3 geniuses, and the rest of the rogue cultivators collected their thoughts. Murong Shue's eyes flickered coldly as she stared at Yuluosha's back. Was this woman somehow related to Qin Nan? Tens of thousands of cultivators instantly burst into motion, their auras bursting forth. The weakest among them was at the 3rd layer Martial Highness realm, while the strongest was at the law-defying Martial Highness realm. Even a martial sacred realm expert would avoid the army of over 10,000 cultivators. The aura of the army of skeletons was instantly suppressed by the cultivators. Qin Nan's cultivation is extraordinary. Our next move, in the nick of time, Mu Tianxing transmitted his voice into the ears of Jiang Fifan, Cheng Tienge, and Murong Shui. Although he was unwilling to do so, he could not help but admit that Qin Nan's strength was utterly terrifying. If they continued to underestimate Qin Nan, they would surely suffer a great loss. Therefore, they had to team up. Sure. The 3 geniuses nodded their heads instantly. Allying with the Mu clan would only bring them benefit. I'll make my move first. Stop this guy. Jiang Fifan transmitted his voice and sprang into the sky. He spread his arms and fired countless silver lines into the bodies of the skeletons, causing them to stiffen and fly toward Qin Nan's figure under Jiang Fifan's control. Well done! Cheng Tienge and the others uttered a roar. Now that things had come to this, whether they were prejudices or not, whether they had a bottom line or not, they had to put everything aside and focus on dealing with Qin Nan first. Ignite the skeletons! Kill! Jiang Fifan wore a cold grin when he saw Qin Nan charging forward as if nothing had happened. Flames were emitted from the tip of his finger, which rapidly spread along the silver line and landed on the skeletons, setting them ablaze. The auras of the skeletons were strengthened instantly, resulting in a great boost to their strength. The burning skeletons uttered cries as they charged in Qin Nan's direction. Cheng Tienge, Mu Tianxing, and the others exchanged glances with one another before nodding their heads. They immediately picked up their pace and surrounded Qin Nan while suppressing Qin Nan's group with their combined strength. My turn. Jiang Bailan's eyes emitted a black glow. Break! Qin Nan's purple hair danced wildly as a terrifying purple glow was emitted from his body. The purple glow was filled with an undefeatable force, which instantly turned the thousands of skeletons into ashes. The power of the flesh of the divine battle Martial Highness. Such a terrifying flesh! Cheng Tienge, Mu Tianxing, and the others were astounded once again. Jiang Fifan's expression instantly darkened. He had initially planned to show off his strength, but he did not expect Qin Nan to destroy his plan in the blink of an eye. Roar! A soundless roar penetrated the sky all of a sudden. The geniuses subconsciously raised their heads while dealing with the skeletons and saw a woman in a black robe gazing at Qing Tiange and the others while emitting an imperious aura. Who is this woman? Her cultivation level doesn't seem to be any weaker than ours. Mu Tianxing's expression darkened. Not only was Qin Nan's cultivation outstanding, he even had so many helpers. However, before he could finish his sentence, a voice rang out. Don't worry. We'll surely suppress them with our combined strength. Jiang Fifan uttered a roar as his aura rose once again. In the name of the Death Monarch, all creatures of death in the world, heed my command. Surround these 7 people, and don't disobey my orders. Anyone who manages to kill them will be greatly rewarded. The words were uttered like an ancient code. The Death Monarch, the art of resisting death. At that instant, the skeletons were stunned as if they had just heard their emperor's order. They immediately turned their heads around and glanced at Qing Tiange, Mu Tianxing, Jiang Fifan, Murong Shui, and the others. Kill. It was as if the word kill was being spread across the place. The skeletons immediately changed their direction and lunged forward with great murderous intent. F***K. Mu Tianxing, Jiang Fifan, and the rest of the geniuses were dumbfounded. Damn it! She was able to control all the undead creatures. The crowd was startled, before their faces were filled with joy. They immediately went around the undead creatures and charged forward. As for Qin Nan, he did not even bother to look at them. He continued to fly into the sky and landed on a pitch-black path not long after. Howl, 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 gusts of evil wind swept the place as several illusionary human figures floated in the air. Each of them possessed a cultivation of the 3rd layer martial highness realm. Crap, it's the evil spirits, be careful. Jiang Bailan straightened her face. She had inherited the succession of the Death Monarch, thus she was familiar with the evil spirits. It was extremely difficult to deal with them. That being said, the main reason was that her mastery of the art of death was too low. Otherwise, she could easily control the evil spirit. Leave it to your Grandpa Long. Long Hu became excited. It was finally time for him to shine. He uttered a roar and transformed into his true form. A giant dragon claw slashed downward and penetrated the evil spirit's body. The evil spirit let out a ferocious grin and bit the dragon claw. Long Hu let out a cry of pain. He did not expect the evil spirit to be so difficult to deal with. Don't move, leave it to me. Qin Nan took a deep breath as he saw the number of evil spirits on the path increasing. He unleashed a stream of the force of the divine god of battle in his body. Bang! A tremendous purple glow burst out from his body and sprang into the sky. The evil spirits on the path uttered cries of agony as if they had just encountered a terrifying presence. They immediately backed away, not daring to get close to the purple glow. This, Jiang Bailan was startled. Long Hu and Yu Luosha were astounded too. It had only been 3 months since they last met. What kind of power did Qin Nan possess? Follow me. Qin Nan uttered the words as the demon god's robe flapped wildly as he walked forward. Chapter 740. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 742. In the past, I was called Yen Zhu. Looking from afar, Qin Nan emitted a purple light that overflowed into the heavens as he soared into the sky. Not long after, he followed the pitch-black path, entered the clouds, and entered the main hall. Love Go Little Say Netuku behind him. Countless rogue cultivators and geniuses arrived one after another and executed their means to fight against the undead spirits. They followed him into the hall one after another. Only Cheng Tiange, Mu Tianxing, and Jiang Fifan were being suppressed by the skeletons. The expressions of the 7 geniuses darkened. We can't waste any more time. Cheng Tiange's eyes suddenly emitted a shocking glow as several golden rays were emitted from his back. A while later, a loud cry could be heard as a giant golden bird floated in the air while emitting a terrifying heat. It had 3 legs. Martial soul, 3-legged golden crow. Go! Cheng Tiange uttered a roar, causing the 3-legged golden crow to spread its wings, encapsulating the crowd as it dove toward the army of skeletons, resulting in a series of explosions. The fire of the golden crow was the bane of evil beings. Not long after, the 7 geniuses arrived at the great path of black. My flames won't be able to disperse the Yin spirits. Cheng Tiange let out a harsh cry as he swept his sharp gaze over the other 6. Omnidirectional void formation. Mu Tianxing's eyes flickered as he stepped forward without hesitation. He exchanged glances with the other 3 disciples of the Mu clan and performed a series of hand seals, causing their figures to emit a green glow, which formed a huge formation in the blink of an eye, emitting a pure aura. Even the Yin spirits, who could pass through all things, could not penetrate this formation. Love go little say, netku even so, countless Yin spirits continued to charge forward, causing the formation to buzz. All life inverted. Murong Shui's jade-like hands formed an ancient seal. A mysterious power rippled out. It was as if the world had been turned upside down. All the evil spirits were unable to attack the formation. It was as if they were separated by a different dimension. Cheng Tiange nodded slightly. Then, he commanded the golden crow to envelop everyone and flew straight into the hall. As soon as they stepped into the hall, an ancient voice exploded. 1,000 people have been filled. The other cultivators can wait outside for now. Cheng Tiange and the others were astounded. They raised their heads and saw the entire hall covered in darkness, as the crowd of rogue cultivators was crowded inside. At the front of the hall sat a 2-zhang tall, pitch-black man with a ferocious face wearing a golden robe. The man flicked his finger, and a wisp of mystic light enveloped the entrance of the hall. The cultivators that came up one after another slammed into the mystic light and were unable to take a single step forward. The 7 geniuses immediately came to a realization and let out relieved sighs. Luckily, they had decided to team up instead of doubting one another. My name is the King of Hell. Welcome to the Heavenly Fortune Path. The King of Hell let out a ferocious grin. The Heavenly Fortune Path is extremely vast. This place is only the tip of the iceberg. I have 18 successions here. You can only find the real succession of the Heavenly Fortune Path after passing these 18 successions. The hearts of the crowd shuddered. 18 successions? They could only find the real succession of the Heavenly Fortune Path after passing these successions? Phew! The crowd could feel their breathing turning fiery. The Heavenly Fortune Path was indeed as the rumors said. How powerful would they be if they were able to acquire these 18 successions? Of course, among these 18 successions, 1 is a 1-starred succession, 7 are 2-starred succession, and 10 are 3-starred succession. 1-starred succession is the best. The King of Hell glanced at the geniuses with great interest as a sudden thought crossed his mind. You will have to pass the trials if you want to enter the good successions. I have trials of strength, talents, general abilities, and strength. More than 30 names were read out simultaneously. They had to take all the trials. Let's take the trials then. There's no need to waste our time. At that instant, Jiang Fifan stepped forward and said in a cold tone. This King of Hell only possessed a cultivation of the martial sacred realm, and was only a guide, thus he would not be bothered by it. Mu Tianxing and the others nodded slightly too. As for the crowd, they frowned and remained silent. Kid, mind your words. The King of Hell glanced down at Jiang Fifan and stared with his eyes open wide as a terrifying aura was emitted from his body. I used to be called the Hell Ancestor. Bang! A terrifying suppression was emitted, which disappeared in a flash. Although it was only for a brief moment, it caused everyone apart from Qin Nan and Jiang Bailan to be astounded. Their foreheads were covered in cold sweat as their figures began to tremble in fear. At that instant, they could feel the fear of death approaching them. Was that the suppression of the martial ancestor? Qin Nan was the only one with a calm expression. As soon as he entered the hall, he could immediately tell that this guy was a martial ancestor, who had been hiding his strength all this while. Oh, the Hell ancestor, who is even older than us! Who would have thought that he would be related to the heavenly fortune path? The two martial ancestors' voices were filled with a hint of jealousy. He would not be the guide for nothing, as Madame Heavenly Fortune of the heavenly fortune path would surely reward him greatly. Humph, a bunch of naive kids. The King of Hell wore a disdainful look as he clenched his teeth and said, "All right, stand still. The trial will begin now. You must take part in all the trials. Based on your overall strength, we will decide which successions you will be heading to." Following a loud bang, over 30 screens were summoned in the hall. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization after taking a glimpse. They would be able to take part in the trial by stepping onto the screens. Phew! We must enter the one-starred successions. At that instant, the eyes of Qing Tiange, Mu Tianxing, and the rest of the geniuses flickered with determination. The opportunity was right in front of them. They could not afford to miss it. Qin Nan, I won't necessarily lose to you in the trial. Qing Tiange, Mu Tianxing, and the rest of the geniuses glanced at Qin Nan at the same time as the same thought crossed their minds. Judging from the names of the trials, apart from the trial of strength, Qin Nan would definitely have an advantage in the other trials. Therefore, they had a great chance of winning. Apart from the 7 geniuses, the rest of the crowd rubbed their fists with fiery eyes. The trials were relatively fair. Even with Qin Nan and the rest of the geniuses, they still had a chance of winning. I'll go first. Qin Nan stood at the front, thus it went without saying that he would be the first to enter the trial. Humph, so what if his strength is all there is to it? In my opinion, this guy's result might be the worst. Once he enters a 3-starred succession ground, Jiang Fifan said with a hollow laugh. He clearly knew that with Qin Nan's strength, it was impossible for him to enter a 2-starred succession ground. He was only trying to embarrass Qin Nan by losing on purpose. The rest of the crowd shook their heads and took a deep breath. What would be the result of this terrifying existence's Zhozhou exam? However, at that instant, the King of Hell suddenly spoke. Wait! Qin Nan was startled before he asked, "What's wrong?" A trace of doubt appeared in the eyes of everyone present. Kid, there's no need for you to take the trial. You can enter a 1-starred succession ground right away. The King of Hell let out a grin. What? No need for him to take the trial? Enter a 1-starred succession ground right away? The crowd could not believe their ears, especially Jiang Fifan, who stared with his mouth open wide. Even Qin Nan was astounded, who subconsciously blurted out, "Senior, I like you, let's go." The King of Hell waved his hand, causing a magical force to appear and teleport Qin Nan out of the trial. The geniuses at the scene were still in a daze. What the F***K was going on? What are you waiting for? Come and take the trial at once. The King of Hell straightened his face and unleashed his aura. Senior, the second one to step forward was Longhu, whose face was filled with hope. Get in there. The King of Hell slapped Longhu's figure into a water curtain. Longhu's cries of agony could be heard from the water curtain. Chapter 741. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 743 Light-shaking martial ancestor. After Qin Nan was immersed in darkness for a brief moment, a blinding light suddenly struck his figure, causing him to fall to the ground. Qin Nan kicked the air and stabilized his figure, before slowly landing on the ground. Love Go Little Say, W. Chu Quick Update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. Please leave a good comment. -79. What the F ***K, you're allowed to enter the one-starred succession ground without even taking the trial. Back then, I was trying to enter the one-starred succession ground, but this bullshit Yama ancestor did not allow us to enter. The two martial progenitors completely lost their composure and burst out cursing. First the Chaos Chi, then the heaven-shattering saber, and now the heavenly fortune mouse. Why was this guy taking all the good things? Squeak, squeak. The heavenly fortune mouse jumped on Qin Nan's shoulder and wore a disdainful look. Two old men, what are you yelling for? Do you think anyone is qualified to be my master? Cough cough. Qin Nan was slightly embarrassed. He was not a fan of enjoying the fruits of his labor, but on second thought, wouldn't Mu Tianxing, Cheng Tianga, and the others vomit blood? It's all thanks to you. Qin Nan understood that the King of Hell must have let him in because of the heavenly fortune mouse. Squeak, squeak. The heavenly fortune mouse reached out its paws and pointed forward, gesturing something. Something good. Qin Nan immediately raised his head and glanced around. He had yet to take a closer look at his surroundings. Love Go Little Say, W. Chu he could only see himself standing in a valley. Cotton candy. The valley was filled with a bloody smell, with skeletons scattered across the ground. The skeletons were emitting different glows, as if they were trying to tell the world that their cultivations were quite impressive when they were alive. Black sunflower, clear heart jade bamboo. Qin Nan was startled after taking a glance at the crowd. This was because he had seen at least several hundred stalks of spirit herbs, and they were all extremely precious spirit herbs. Now that there were so many spirit herbs, what kind of inheritance would there be in the depths of the valley? Qin Nan, be careful. It's not that easy to acquire the succession of the heavenly fortune path. The two martial ancestor glared at the heavenly fortune mouse and warned. Qin Nan nodded. Previously, when he tried to peek deeper with his left eye of the divine god of battle, it was hindered by the mystical force of the heavenly fortune path. Shwa. There were treasures everywhere. How could Qin Nan let them go? He reached out with his hand, and like the autumn wind sweeping up fallen leaves, he swept up all of the spirit medicines. Boom! At that instant, the skeleton on the ground suddenly rose to its feet and emitted a terrifying aura, which turned out to be a peak martial highness realm cultivator, charging in Qin Nan's direction. This scene came too quickly, catching everyone off guard. I knew it! Qin Nan glanced at the 15 skeletons and let out a hollow laugh. Without hesitation, he stomped his foot and dodged the attacks with his left eye. As he failed to dodge a single attack, he clenched his left fist and threw punches at the skeletons. Love Go Little Say, W. Chu 10,000 streams of the force of the martial highness realm were unleashed. Bang bang bang! The skeletons were shattered into pieces and scattered in all directions. F ***K, are you really a law-defying martial highness? The two martial ancestors stared with their eyes open wide. They were aware that Qin Nan's strength was insane, but they did not expect it to be this insane. 15 peak martial highness realm cultivators, and they were all killed in the blink of an eye? Qin Nan remained silent. How could a peak martial highness stand a chance against the power of the left arm of the divine god of battle when he had unleashed 10,000 streams of the force of the martial highness realm? Even a law-defying martial highness would be blasted into pieces with a single punch. Qin Nan continued to move forward at a slow pace. He was not in a rush. After all, he was the only one left in the succession, thus he could take his time. The further he ventured, the tighter Qin Nan's frown became. A strange gust of wind could be felt deep inside the valley, causing his body to be covered in goosebumps as he could sense a hint of coldness. Even the flesh of the divine god of battle could feel the coldness. How cold was it? Qin Nan glanced at his surroundings. Despite the temperature, there was no sign of ice on the ground. It was obvious that the coldness was not an ordinary force. The heavenly fortune mouse sneezed and assumed a defensive stance with its paws while wearing a stern expression. Buzz. Qin Nan could feel his scalp turning numb as a sense of danger rose within his heart. Whoosh! A black figure dashed out from deep inside the valley, which turned out to be a pitch-black serpent with a green crown on its head. Its eyes were sinister white, while its fangs were red. Its cultivation was at the first layer martial sacred realm. The serpent sprang forward at an incredible speed and arrived before Qin Nan in the blink of an eye. It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a poisonous liquid toward Qin Nan like a flood. It pretended to bite Qin Nan while attacking from behind with the poisonous liquid, an extremely vicious sight. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with a purple flicker as the words "read" were uttered. However, before he could make his move, whoosh! A brilliant sword glow swept forward and sliced the serpent in half, causing the poisonous liquid to splatter onto Qin Nan's body. However, when it was 3 inches away from his skin, the heavenly might of the divine god of battle evaporated the poisonous liquid, preventing it from coming any closer to his flesh. Qin Nan's eyes showed no sign of surprise as he stared forward. The reason being that the sense of danger did not originate from the serpent, but from the person who had unleashed the sword. The person was a middle-aged man with disheveled hair. His white robe was extremely dirty, and his hair was disheveled too. Despite his filthy appearance, Qin Nan could feel a sense of comfort from it. He was holding a tree branch in his hand. The tree branch was used as a sword to slash the first layer martial sacred realm in half. "Who are you?" Qin Nan's blood began to flow as his eyes squinted, as if he had sensed something. The person before him possessed a cultivation of the second layer martial sacred realm. Apart from that, there was also a shocking power contained within his body. The middle-aged man stared at Qin Nan with a pair of aged eyes and said with a smile, "I don't really remember my real name, but everyone calls me the light-shaking martial ancestor." Qin Nan was startled. The light-shaking martial ancestor? This person was an expert from the martial ancestor? The light-shaking martial ancestor? I know him. He's from the same era as the King of Hell, and he's also an expert from the Eastern continent. What's going on? Why is he still alive here? The 2 martial ancestors stared with their eyes open wide with a hint of astonishment. Qin Nan, be careful. This light-shaking martial ancestor might be trying to devour your flesh. The 2 martial ancestor frowned and warned him. Qin Nan nodded his head. It was not his first time encountering someone trying to devour his flesh, thus it was better to be cautious. "Greetings, Senior. I'm Qin Nan. May I ask what this place is?" Qin Nan brought his fists together and asked. "This place is called the Thousand," the light-shaking martial ancestor said. Before he could finish, 2 auras burst out from behind him at the same time. Qin Nan turned his head around and saw 2 women approaching him, bringing a pleasant scent with them. These 2 were none other than Yu Luosha and Murong Shui. The 2 women had passed the trial and were fortunate enough to arrive at this 1-starred succession ground. The light-shaking progenitor's eyes were filled with astonishment seeing this. Didn't that mean? Chapter 742. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a wonderful novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 744 Soul Inspection Road. It seems like some unknown changes have taken place in the heavenly fortune path. The light-shaking martial ancestor's eyes flickered. However, it didn't matter if it was 1, 2, or 3 people. "Qin Nan? You're really here. Yu Luosha's voice was filled with surprise. Murong Shue's eyes flickered with jealousy. She had used all her means to reach this one-starred inheritance, but Qin Nan didn't even need to do anything. The two women discovered the existence of the light-shaking progenitor. Just as they were about to ask him about it, they shivered. This place was indescribably cold. They immediately began to circulate their mysterious techniques to resist the cold. This is the light-shaking martial ancestor, Qin Nan introduced with a calm expression. He didn't move at all. With the strange inheritance and the mysterious light-shaking martial ancestor, it was better for them to bide their time. Yu Luosha didn't show any reaction, but Murong Shue's eyes were filled with astonishment as she glanced at the light-shaking martial ancestor. Everyone, let's cut to the chase. I'm sure you've seen that although the treasures in this inheritance are tempting, it's also extremely dangerous. The light-shaking martial ancestor said, I couldn't defeat the forbidding aura by myself. Now that the four of us have teamed up, we have a chance to leave this place and obtain the inheritance. You're saying that we should team up? Qin Nan squinted his eyes and said with a cold smile, Forgive me for being blunt, but even you, the martial ancestor, have fallen to this forbidden area. How can the four of us survive this? If you want to team up, you should show some sincerity. You don't know. The light-shaking martial ancestor didn't show any reaction. Instead, he said calmly, This place is called the Qianjua Valley, and there's a path deep inside it called the Soul Inspection Road. This path is extremely strange. Only 4 living people walking on it at the same time will not be devoured by the forbidding aura. The Soul Inspection Road? Qin Nan and the others were startled. Qin Nan soon came to a realization. What the light-shaking martial ancestor said was a lie. The Soul Inspection Road required 4 living people at the same time. Including Yu Luosha and Murong Shue, there were exactly 4 living people. How could there be such a coincidence? If you don't believe me, you can come with me, the light-shaking progenitor said with a calm expression facing the 3 gazes. Qin Nan's place. Qin Nan's martial ancestor had a martial ancestor, was Qin Nan's eyes was not martial ancestor mystic sacred was. The light-shaking progenitor suddenly turned to Murong Shue and asked in a soft and gentle voice, Your Excellency, you do resemble an old friend of mine. Would it be possible for you to stand beside me and travel together with me? I'm sorry. To everyone's surprise, Murong Shue flipped her hair and glanced at Qin Nan without hesitation. She blinked her eyes and said, I don't want to follow you. It's fine if the 3 of us stick together. Saying this, she leaned on Qin Nan's shoulder. Her entire body turned limp. You better stay half a zhang away from me. Otherwise, die. Qin Nan glanced at Murong Shue coldly. His left eye of the divine god of battle was extremely outstanding, allowing him to see through the woman's trick. She had secretly executed a bewitching technique when she was approaching him. If his reaction had been slightly slower, the bewitching technique would have landed on his body without him noticing. A love go little say, W Chu Yu. Murong Shue's figure stiffened. She was unaware of her evil intentions, and said with a hint of resentment, You are a peerless legend of the Eastern continent. I admire you and want to get close to you because of my feelings. It's fine if you're resisting now, but why can't you give me a chance? Her expression dimmed, causing one to feel pity for her. Bang! Qin Nan's eyes flickered with a shocking murderous intent. Cultivator, don't you think you've gone too far? The light-shaking martial ancestor stood in front of Murong Shue with a flicker and said with a sharp gaze, We'll settle our grudges after we pass the Soul Inspection Road. For now, let's pretend nothing happened. What do you think? Qin Nan withdrew his murderous intent and nodded. Let's go, the light-shaking martial ancestor led the way without saying anything else. Murong Shue let out a sigh and followed behind the light-shaking martial ancestor with a hint of helplessness. The 2 of them have already formed an alliance. Let's be careful later. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to Yu Luosha while following the two. He had purposely revealed his murderous intent to test the waters. Yu Luosha nodded her head. At that moment she was slightly stunned. The young man in the past had unknowingly turned into a real man. The four of them didn't say a word as they walked forward in silence. Roar. A series of beastly roars could be heard coming from deep within the valley, as poisonous beasts sprang out and attacked the four. The light-shaking martial ancestor stood at the front and swung his branch, killing the beasts with a single slash. As they ventured deeper, the cultivation of the beasts grew stronger, reaching the second layer martial sacred realm. After the period it took for an incense to burn, the light-shaking martial ancestor finally came to a stop. We're here. This is the Soul Inspection Road. Qin Nan raised his head and glanced ahead. A cave had appeared in front of him. The cave was pitch black, and it rippled with an extremely powerful and profound energy. A stone stele stood at the entrance of the cave, and 3 ancient words were inscribed on the stone stele: Soul Search Road. This Soul Inspection Road is quite unique, Qin Nan pondered as he glimpsed at it. Through his left eye of the divine god of battle, he discovered that the forbidding aura of the Soul Inspection Road was formed naturally, without a core. In other words, Qin Nan could easily destroy a normal forbidding aura with a single finger, but he could not destroy the forbidding aura of the Soul Inspection Road with a single finger even if he were able to see through it. The reason being that every part of the forbidding aura was a weak point, causing it to have no weak points at all. Cultivator, come and have a try. The light-shaking martial ancestor glanced at Qin Nan. Whoosh! With a flicker, Qin Nan's figure landed on the Soul Inspection Road. Bang! A terrifying force was awakened inside the cave all of a sudden. It felt like a ferocious beast was about to pounce on them. Even Qin Nan's face turned pale, as the force had completely exceeded the limit that he could endure. Whoosh! Yu Luosha took a step forward and also landed on the Soul Inquiring Road. However, the terrifying power didn't decrease but instead increased, becoming even more terrifying. This Soul Inspection Road is quite unique. It's only safe when 4 living people are on it. The light-shaking martial ancestor glanced at Murong Shui as he spoke. The two's figures landed on the Soul Inspection Road at the same time. At that instant, the force and aura completely vanished. The forbidding aura of the Soul Inspection Road stopped functioning. This light-shaking martial ancestor was right? Qin Nan was startled. Could it be that he, Yu Luosha, Murong Shui, and the light-shaking martial ancestor were all part of the Heavenly Fortune Path's plan? Interesting, very interesting. Qin Nan's lips curled upward. Chapter 743. Genius 1 Second. Remember love divided by little? SegNet, providing you with fascinating novels to read. C_T. Chapter 745. Magic Scarlet Poisonous Fruit. We're finally on the Soul Inspection Road. Ha! At that instant, the light-shaking realm martial ancestor burst out laughing, as if the Soul Inspection Road had become his inner demon. Please go to this book. -79. Everyone, I'm sorry, I was too excited just then. After a while, the light-shaking realm martial ancestor collected his thoughts and brought his fists together in an apologetic manner. Now we're on the Soul Inspection Road. We can proceed straight to the place where the succession of the treasure is located. Let's go. With a kick, he sprang forward. Even Murong Shui withdrew her grudging gaze toward Qin Nan after hearing about the treasure. Hee, Qin Nan, don't you think it strange? I think this light-shaking realm martial ancestor isn't just suspicious, it's very suspicious. Either way, you should take it easy. The 2 martial ancestors reminded Qin Nan. After all, they had made a promise with Qin Nan that they would split the loot 50-50. The Heavenly Fortune mouse squeaked for a while before closing its eyes and falling asleep. I know what to do. Qin Nan nodded his head and followed behind. The Soul Inspection Road was pitch black and long. Even with their cultivation and full speed, they had yet to reach the end after the period it took an incense to burn. "We're almost there." After the period it took 2 incense sticks to burn, the light-shaking realm martial ancestor yelled. Qin Nan swiftly raised his head and his left eye emitted a purple glow. He immediately saw a dot of light 20 zhang away, which seemed to be the exit of a cave. "Is this?" Qin Nan was startled. He did not expect to find an altar at the end of the Soul Inspection Road. Love go little say, the altar was 3 li long and extremely spacious. It was covered in cracks, with broken rocks scattered all over the place, as if a terrifying battle had taken place here. Even after such a long time, the terrifying aura still lingered in the air. Besides that, Qin Nan saw something else too. At the center of the altar was a stone pedestal, on top of which was a fruit. "Almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than normal websites, and the updates are faster too. There are no advertisements." This fruit was about the size of 2 fists. It was filled with uneven edges and appeared to be scarlet red in color. In its surroundings, it was emitting strands of black gas. Apart from that, it did not look special. However, Qin Nan could sense an indescribably terrifying force from it. Squeak, squeak. The heavenly fortune mouse jumped into the air as its eyes flickered, as if it were trying to remind Qin Nan that the fruit was the treasure. Could this be the magic scarlet fruit? The 2 martial ancestors in his body stared at the fruit for a while, before they blurted out in astonishment, "Holy crap! This fruit really exists. Qin Nan, you must get it. Not only will you be able to form the magic scarlet flesh after consuming it, you will also be able to alter your destiny, granting you a 10th grade D-ranked martial spirit. If you have a 10th grade D-ranked martial spirit, the fruit will merge with your martial spirit, granting you a new ability. It's called the Scarlet Poison. Once it's unleashed, the poison within 5 li will spread across the place." Qin Nan's eyes were filled with astonishment after hearing this. Forming the magic scarlet flesh. Altering one's destiny. Even if his martial spirit had reached the 10th grade D-ranked, it would still grant him a terrifying ability. Wasn't this magic scarlet fruit a bit too terrifying? The magic scarlet fruit, the light-shaking realm martial ancestor stared at the fruit with a greedy look. This time, he finally had the chance to claim the fruit. With a 10th grade D-ranked martial spirit, he would be able to achieve a higher cultivation after leaving the heavenly fortune path. "Jade Rakshasa, let's work together and claim the fruit." Qin Nan instantly transmitted his voice. How could they not compete for the treasure before them? Whoosh! At that instant, Qin Nan and the light-shaking realm martial ancestor both sprang into action, dashing toward the magic scarlet fruit like 2 rays of lightning. The 2 immediately predicted each other's movements, causing their gazes to collide with one another, resulting in a strong gust of wind. "Kid, you think you can compete with me for the fruit? Piss off." The light-shaking progenitor finally revealed his true colors, as he no longer displayed his previous gentle appearance. Instead, he emitted a ferocious murderous aura as he waved his hand, causing the branch in his hand to emit a shocking sword intent that slashed in Qin Nan's direction. At that instant, Qin Nan raised his right arm. Bang! A loud explosion took place. Qin Nan's figure was knocked over 10 steps backward, causing his arm to go numb, but he was unharmed. "You're fine." The light-shaking realm martial ancestor was slightly startled, before he let out a hollow laugh. "I knew your strength was extraordinary, but I was prepared for it. Murong Shui, according to our agreement, I'll hand this brat over to you first. Don't forget your promise." Following a cry, Murong Shui's figure sprang into the sky with a whoosh and glanced downward at Qin Nan and Yu Luosha, who had just arrived. "You dare to stop me?" Qin Nan's lips curled upward. As he had expected, Murong Shui and the light-shaking realm martial ancestor had been colluding with each other all along. He did not kill them at the beginning as he did not want to alert them, but now, how could he not kill them? Did the light-shaking realm martial ancestor really think that Murong Shui alone could stop him? Martial Spirit Unleash. Sentient Beings Realm. Murong Shui uttered a roar. 18 kinds of bewitching techniques were executed in her body at the same time, as 10 golden rays were emitted from her back. A golden copper pot floated in the air, emitting a pink glow from its mouth, which instantly filled the place. Qin Nan. Shit. Her martial spirit is able to create illusions, which is extremely powerful. It can trap us. The Jade Rakshasa's face turned pale. Normally, he would not be intimidated, but it was a race against time. Once he was trapped, he would lose everything. Whoosh! The pink glow descended, causing the world in front of Qin Nan to change instantly, turning white. Countless figures rose from the ground, which turned out to be Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Luan Feng, Shui Meng, and the rest of the women. Their eyes were filled with flirtatious looks while their cheeks were blushing. They walked toward Qin Nan with soft voices, as if he was in heaven on earth. The bewitching technique was to first disrupt his thoughts. Then it was to trap his flesh with a barrier. Qin Nan, even though you're a peerless genius, but even a hero can't resist the charms of a beauty. You should enjoy yourself. Murong Shui giggled while covering her mouth. Her eyes were filled with excitement. According to the agreement between her and the light-shaking realm martial ancestor, once she had obtained the demonic flower of yin and yang, the light-shaking realm martial ancestor would help her to subdue Qin Nan. When that happened, she would be able to turn Qin Nan into her puppet. The thought of having such a peerless genius caused her to be unable to control her excitement. That being said, she and the light-shaking realm martial ancestor had agreed to a contract in private, which prevented them from breaking the promise. Otherwise, they would be punished by the heavens. However, at that instant a thunderous voice could be heard. In the illusion, Qin Nan's purple hair danced wildly as 10,000 streams of the force of the martial highness realm were unleashed in his body. His left eye penetrated, and his left arm turned into a saber as he lashed out with a kick. Bang! A terrifying saber intent was fired into the sky, shattering the illusion instantly, before it swept toward Murong Shui with a destructive force. The saber of the divine god of battle, destroying everything. Murong Shui's eyes widened. How was this possible? Had her martial spirit's illusion been shattered just like that? Crap! The light-shaking realm martial ancestor, save me! Murong Shui soon collected her thoughts as a great terror encapsulated her figure. However, as soon as she said the word "I," her figure was devoured by the terrifying saber intent. There was no way she could resist the power of the saber. Murong Shui's figure was instantly slain, killed by a single slash. Light-shaking realm. Qin Nan emitted a magnificent aura as he glanced at the light-shaking realm martial ancestor with his left eye. Bang! However, to everyone's surprise, the light-shaking realm martial ancestor reached out his hand and grabbed Murong Shui's figure, before he let out an eerie grin. Chapter 744. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 746. Let me do it. Qin Nan and Yu Luosha were startled. Quick update, the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I like this kind of website the most, please give it a good review. Murong Shui was the ally of the light-shaking realm martial ancestor. Now that she had been killed, why was he thanking him? You're suspicious, right? Open your eyes wide and watch. Ha! The light-shaking realm martial ancestor burst out laughing, as he clenched his fists and crushed Murong Shui's corpse into pieces, causing blood to splatter everywhere. He then grabbed the blood in his hand and flung it into the air, forming a mysterious blood formation. Blood fiend non-spirit. Suppress. The light-shaking realm martial ancestor performed a hand seal, causing the formation to descend onto the magic scarlet sun fruit. Bang! It was as if the magic scarlet sun fruit was aware of something, as a shocking aura burst out from it, aiming to shatter the blood formation into pieces. The light-shaking realm martial ancestor wore a disdainful grin on his face. Bang! A loud explosion took place. The shocking aura of the magic scarlet sun fruit was knocked back by the blood formation. Furthermore, the blood formation was instantly shattered into pieces, resulting in pitch-black blood pouring down onto the fruit, resulting in a sizzling sound, causing one's hair to stand on end. Qin Nan instantly realized what was going on. The shocking aura of the magic scarlet sun fruit was being knocked back rapidly. Could this be? Qin Nan immediately came to a realization, as his eyes were filled with astonishment. The light-shaking realm martial ancestor. Such a cunning plan. You figured it out? The Alcade martial ancestor turned his head to look at Qin Nan. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. That's right, this was one of his schemes. It was true that he had formed an alliance with Murong Shui, and it was also true that he had sworn an oath. However, when Qin Nan came to this one-star inheritance, he had already seen Qin Nan's cultivation. Murong Shui was simply not a match for Qin Nan. Advertisement. Therefore, by sending Murong Shui to deal with Qin Nan, he was sending Murong Shui to her death. Once Murong Shui died, he would be able to use her blood essence to form a blood formation and severely injure the magic scarlet sun fruit. Only in this way could he obtain the magic scarlet sun fruit. I have to admit that your scheming is indeed formidable. Even I was unable to see through it. However, Qin Nan's expression returned to normal, and a shocking fighting spirit erupted from his eyes. Do you think this is the only scheme? Come back. The Alcade martial ancestor waved his hand. Rumble. Following a shocking explosion, Qin Nan immediately saw the enormous soul inspection road soaring into the sky while emitting a tremendous aura and a terrifying force. This soul inspection road was actually a mystical weapon. No, it's not a mystical weapon, it's my cultivation. The Alcade martial ancestor wore a grin on his face. That's right. The soul inspection road was his cultivation. He was once a martial ancestor before his death. Why would his cultivation drop to such a level? He had snuck into the heavenly fortune path, and despite being protected by a powerful artifact, he was still rejected by the heavenly fortune path, causing him to be unable to utilize his martial ancestor's cultivation. Therefore, he decided to refine his cultivation into this mystical artifact using a secret technique. As such, the soul inspection road was under his control when it was only one person, 2 people, 3 people, and so on. The reason why he said 4 people were allowed to pass was to lure Qin Nan and the others here. Bang bang! The magic scarlet fruit began to struggle as if it was aware of something, emitting a terrifying force that dyed the darkness in the surroundings of fiery red. It seems like the blood formation isn't strong enough. That's great. I initially thought only one person would come to the one-starred succession, but you two are here too. I'll use you two to strengthen the power of my blood formation. The Alcade martial ancestor's eyes became ferocious. He stomped the ground like an emperor descending upon the world. The soul inspection road behind him moved accordingly, shrouding the heavens and earth while emitting a loud rumble, resulting in a tremendous suppression. Qin Nan and Yuluosha became minuscule under the influence of the soul inspection road, unable to resist its power. After all, the Alcade martial ancestor had refined it using his own cultivation. Although it was not a monarch weapon, it was stronger than a half-monarch weapon. What a great plan indeed! As expected of the martial ancestor, such a brilliant plan. However, I have a question. Why did you lure us here? With your cultivation, you should have been able to kill us the moment you met us. It would have been the same as using us to form the blood formation. Why did you have to waste so much effort? Qin Nan asked with a calm expression. Because I snuck in here. If I were to unleash my cultivation outside, I would be eliminated by the heavenly fortune path. Now that I've arrived at the one-starred succession, the succession would be activated. Even if I were to unleash my full strength, the heavenly fortune path would not interfere. Qin Nan die. For some reason, the Alcade martial ancestor still answered Qin Nan's question. As he uttered the last 3 words, the power of the soul inspection road was fully unleashed, suppressing Qin Nan's figure. I see. As the doubts in Qin Nan's mind were resolved, his eyes sharpened. At the last moment, he glanced at the magic scarlet sun fruit. I know you're aware that someone like him is trying to claim you. If that's the case, block the soul inspection road for me for 100 breaths, and I'll slay him for you. Qin Nan transmitted a message with his divine sense. The magic scarlet sun fruit shuddered. The words struck a chord in its heart. If it had acknowledged the Alcade martial ancestor, wouldn't it have submitted to the Alcade martial ancestor long ago? Bang! A shocking aura burst out from the magic scarlet sun fruit, which transformed into 2 giant hands grabbing the soul inspection road with brute force, preventing it from moving. Roar! The magic scarlet sun fruit uttered a roar. It was reminding Qin Nan that he only had 100 breaths time. The light-shaking martial progenitor god was startled. He did not expect the magic scarlet fruit to unleash such a powerful move to block the soul inspection road at the cost of its primary force. Could it be the Alcade martial ancestor lowered his head as he sensed something? Alcade, I'm very impressed by your cunning. Among the people I know, only one of them is comparable to you. But, have you heard of the saying, a single force can break 10,000 laws? No matter how cunning you are, they're nothing in front of strength. Qin Nan uttered a roar. It was the first time since he had achieved the divine battle martial highness realm that his battle intent was fully unleashed. His left arm suddenly grabbed his right arm. He was going to draw out his saber. Draw out the heaven-shattering saber and shatter the heaven-shattering saber. You think you can do it? Even if the soul inspection road is blocked, there's no way you can kill me in such a short period of time. The Alcade martial ancestor burst out laughing. In his eyes, Qin Nan was trying to counterattack before his death. He clearly knew that the soul inspection road would only be blocked for 100 breaths time. Trying to kill him within 100 breaths time? In his dreams. However, at that instant a rare occurrence took place. A jade-like hand suddenly grabbed Qin Nan's figure and dragged Qin Nan's figure to a stop. You! Qin Nan was startled. What was the jade Rakshasa doing? The succession of the one-starred succession will be contested for the succession of the heavenly fortune path. Preserve your strength for now. The jade Rakshasa wore a calm expression and said, This guy. Let me deal with him. Bang. Chapter 745. A genius remembers love in a second divided by little? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 747 Longyang Chant. The aura did not belong to the martial sacred realm, but it continued to rise in a mystical manner. In the blink of an eye, it had surpassed the martial sacred realm, and was comparable to the third-layer martial sacred realm of the light-shaking martial ancestor. Qin Nan was startled. Love go little sag full text -79xs. He did not expect Yu Luosha to step forward at this moment. In his mind, even though Yu Luosha had altered her destiny, she only possessed a 9th-grade D-ranked martial spirit, which was not considered powerful. Besides, it was highly possible that Yu Luosha had sacrificed something extremely precious to unleash such a powerful aura. No, Qin Nan shook his head and said. However, before he could finish his sentence, Yu Luosha's figure began to move. Whoosh! With a kick, Yu Luosha arrived before the light-shaking martial ancestor in the blink of an eye. Countless pink flowers appeared behind her, covering the entire place, turning the succession ground into a sea of flowers. What a surprise, you've mastered such a forbidden art. However, I'm the light-shaking martial ancestor. Do you really think you can defeat me? The light-shaking martial ancestor uttered a shocking roar. A ray of light floated within his body, which swayed like a boat in the ocean. Light-shaking, a ray of light. Don't underestimate the movement, as each time the ray of light shook, it would unleash a terrifying aura. The great thousand universe is boundless, and the boat of light sails in the void. In the nick of time, the light-shaking martial ancestor executed a powerful attack. The ray of light encapsulated Yu Luosha's figure, forming a giant boat that swayed slightly, trying to shatter Yu Luosha's flesh with brute force. It seems like someone from the south is here. Yu Luosha's expression remained the same as she placed her hands together and let out a sigh. Sigh. This sigh contained a myriad of emotions, and it appeared in the world in an inconceivable manner. At that instant, the entire Alcade vessel began to shatter into pieces as if it had just received a terrifying attack. Even the illusionary figure on the vessel was unable to escape. What kind of power is that? The light-shaking realm martial ancestor's pupils contracted slightly. He had seen many things, but he had never seen such a strange technique before. The good fortune in the north is gone. Jade Rakshasa pushed her hands forward. Rumble! It was as if a torrential flood had surged into the sky and was about to engulf the light-shaking martial ancestor. The light-shaking martial ancestor's expression changed drastically. The power of this attack was enough to shatter his physical body. Formless light steps. The light-shaking realm martial ancestor uttered a roar as his figure turned into a ray of light. His speed was terrifying as he dodged the attack in all directions. Whoosh! The sound of rushing wind could be heard. The light-shaking realm martial ancestor appeared behind Yu Luosha like a ghost. A sword of light suddenly formed in his hand and he slashed it towards the back of Yu Luosha's head. This attack was as fast as lightning. Not good! Qin Nan's expression changed and he was about to attack. Love go little say, networku ask the world what love is. Yu Luosha's expression did not change. Her words were followed by the law. The 7 words transformed into a shocking force that surged out from her back and crashed towards the light-shaking martial ancestor. Damn! The light-shaking martial ancestor's expression changed. He immediately withdrew his hand and changed direction to dodge the attack. Even so, his body was forcefully struck by the force of the attack and he was forced to take a few steps back. It's called a life and death pledge. Whoosh! At that instant, countless flower petals appeared from the void. Each of the petals carried a shocking force as they intersected and danced wildly. Wherever they passed, explosions would take place and everything would be shattered. A poem, a killing blow. The power of Yu Luosha was fully displayed. Secret technique of the light-shaking realm. Extreme misfortune brings joy. The light-shaking martial ancestor was aware of the shocking danger. He let out a roar and spat out a mouthful of blood. As he performed a hand seal, a series of swooshing sounds could be heard. Several illusionary figures appeared from the light-shaking martial ancestor's body. The illusionary figures would resist as many flower petals as they came at him, countering each attack as it came. Ha! I can't deny that you're able to unleash such strength with your cultivation of the peak martial highness realm. However, even if the two of you work together, you won't be able to defeat me. At least, you won't be able to defeat me within the span of 100 breaths. The light-shaking martial ancestor let out a shocking laugh. Only less than 10 breaths were left. How could he possibly lose within a dozen breaths of time when he had used a forbidden technique? Once the soul inspection road broke free from the suppression of the magic scarlet fruit, he would be able to kill Qin Nan and the woman instead. The magic scarlet fruit in the sky let out a cry as if it was aware of something. Despite its struggles, it still could not escape from the deadly attack. Long Yang. Chant. However, at this instant Yu Luosha's face paled. The hand seal in his hand was completely formed. The poem she had just uttered was not a killing blow. It was the prelude to the Long Yang chant. Using the poem as the trigger. Using the soul as the support. Summoning the Emperor of Long Yang. Bang! In the blink of an eye, countless petals of peach blossoms surged into the sky as a magnificent figure emerged from the void. The figure was neither male nor female. It was seductive and imperious at times. Its aura was indescribable, but its aura was as terrifying as the ocean. How is this possible? The light-shaking martial ancestor's expression changed tremendously. How was it possible for a peak martial highness to execute such a move? No matter how great the sacrifice was, it was impossible to execute such a terrifying move. Bang! At that instant the illusionary figure struck ferociously. It was as if the entire heavens and earth were about to crumble. The power of the attack was beyond his imagination. The light-shaking martial ancestor opened his eyes wide. At the moment of life and death, he instinctively executed countless moves to defend himself. However, these moves were all destroyed in the blink of an eye. He even witnessed his body being destroyed inch by inch, until it was completely gone in the next breath. At the moment of his death, his mind was filled with confusion. This was because he had never thought that he would still die despite his meticulous planning, let alone being killed by a peak martial highness. Why? Before he could find out the answer, he was completely devoured by endless darkness. The light-shaking martial ancestor had fallen. He had walked to the end of his life with his endless schemes. Bang, bang, bang! A series of densely packed explosions rang out. The soul inspection road floating in the sky began to shatter as if it had been struck by a terrifying attack. The artifact was refined using the light-shaking martial ancestor's cultivation. Now that the light-shaking martial ancestor had fallen, it was destroyed too. Qin Nan's eyes were filled with astonishment. Did the Jade Rakshasa really kill the light-shaking martial ancestor? All of a sudden, Qin Nan raised his head as he became aware of something. His face turned pale. Chapter 746. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second/Small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 748. Following a legend, they could only see Yu Luosha's figure falling from the sky. Qin Nan stepped forward and caught her without hesitation, placing her on the ground. The updates were so fast. Qin Nan looked at her pale face and said with a wry smile, "Why bother? I can deal with this light-shaking martial ancestor myself without any problems." "Nothing, I just wanted to help you." Yu Luosha steadied himself as if he had recovered some of his vitality. He blinked and said, "Who asked you to be my junior fellow apprentice?" Qin Nan was stunned as he recalled the scene from back then. On the Duanmu mountain of the Qinglong sacred area, the first senior brother Zhao Feng arrived with a smile on his face. The surrounding disciples wore strange looks on their faces. Qin Nan subconsciously shuddered. There was no way he could accept Zhao Feng's feelings for him. "It's okay. Just treat me as a friend." Jade Luosha saw the slight movement just now. His breathing paused slightly before he smiled and said, "Quickly go and refine the magic scarlet poisonous fruit. I need to recover some of my vitality first." After saying that, she sat down cross-legged and didn't say anything else. Sigh. Qin Nan let out a sigh and shook his head. Although Yu Luosha's actions warmed his heart, feelings were something that couldn't be forced. No matter what, he couldn't accept it. I will remember this kindness in my heart. If you have any requests in the future, I will definitely do my best. Qin Nan said in his heart as he looked at the magic scarlet poisonous fruit. His original intention was to give the fruit to Yu Luosha. However, judging from Yu Luosha's attitude, she would definitely not accept it. Whoosh! Qin Nan slowly exhaled and adjusted his emotions. Magic scarlet sun fruit, you are a treasure of a one-star inheritance land. From now on, follow me. Do you agree? Qin Nan's aura changed tremendously, as if he had transformed into a divine god of battle. He lowered his eyes and glanced down at everything in the world. Qin Nan, you bastard! Didn't we agree on a 50-50 split? How can you take it all for yourself? You're such a dishonest person. Hurry up and chop the magic scarlet poisonous fruit in half. The two martial ancestors screamed. The heavenly fortune mouse clenched its teeth and displayed a ferocious look, as if it was trying to say, "If you two keep screaming, I'll kill you. F***ck. You stinky rat. How dare you glare at us?" The two martial ancestors were furious. It was fine if Qin Nan didn't keep his word, but now, even this rat was bullying them. The heavenly fortune mouse was infuriated. It squeaked furiously as if it were cursing. The two humans and one rat instantly clashed with one another, resulting in a great battle. Qin Nan ignored it. He was a man of his word, but there was no way he could split the magic scarlet poisonous fruit. Kid, don't you dare use your authority against me. Even though I'm not willing to do so, to be honest, according to the rules of the succession land, you've passed the trial since you've slain the light-shaking realm martial ancestor. Now, before I change my mind, open your mind at once. The magic scarlet poisonous fruit emitted a stream of its divine sense into Qin Nan's mind, which was filled with a strong unwillingness. As a rare treasure of the heavens and earth, it was able to alter one's destiny. Even if it was to be refined by someone, it should at least follow a peerless figure. This kid was not worthy enough for it. Is that so? If that's the case, why don't you give it a try? Qin Nan's lips curled upward. He was planning to tell the truth about the magic scarlet poisonous fruit, but after seeing its attitude, there was no need for him to do so. Was it satisfied or not? It would know once it tried. Whoosh! The magic scarlet poisonous fruit instantly turned into a beam of red light and entered Qin Nan's forehead, arriving at his divine sense in the blink of an eye. The heavens and earth are endless, my transformation martial spirit. The magic scarlet poisonous fruit emitted a brilliant glow. It was trying to transform itself into a martial spirit. However, following this, its voice came to a halt as its eyes were filled with astonishment after discovering something. F***k me. What was going on? Why was there such a terrifying copper mirror in this kid's divine sense? It was able to suppress its aura. It seems like this kid has quite an extraordinary background. The magic scarlet poisonous fruit mumbled to itself and calmed its thoughts. Following this, its fruit shattered into pieces and turned into a puff of black smoke. The smoke was extremely obscure, as if it had surpassed the heavens and earth. Whoosh! The smoke shuddered and penetrated deep into Qin Nan's divine sense. It was trying to shatter Qin Nan's martial spirit and become Qin Nan's new martial spirit. However, as soon as it saw the divine battle spirit, its face was filled with astonishment. This first-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit? This kid had a first-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit. What was going on? Since when did such a peerless genius appear in the Eastern continent? Ha ha ha. Kid, no wonder you were so calm just then. So you have a Tian-ranked martial spirit. Very well. You are now worthy enough to be my martial spirit. I'll now add another ability to your martial spirit. the magic scarlet poisonous fruit burst out laughing with an excited expression. A rare encounter befitting a hero. Whoosh! The smoke dashed toward the divine battle spirit, but at that instant, a rare occurrence took place. The enormous divine battle spirit glanced downward as if it was aware of something. Piss off! At that instant, it was as if the word piss off had exploded. A terrifying suppression was emitted from the divine battle spirit. It was incomparably vast and immeasurable. This time, the magic scarlet poisonous fruit's voice was filled with great terror. At that instant it felt like it had just seen a real deity. Before it could react, a terrifying force burst out from the divine battle spirit, causing the smoke of the magic scarlet poisonous fruit to enter Qin Nan's body. Trying to merge it with the divine battle spirit? You're not worthy enough. As I thought, the magic scarlet poisonous fruit is unable to merge with the divine battle spirit. If that's the case, I'll use my flesh to refine it. Qin Nan murmured as he was not surprised by what had just happened. He immediately unleashed his will to lock onto the wisp of smoke, before unleashing his heart flame and absorbing it into his body. Otherwise, the magic scarlet poisonous fruit would trigger the divine battle spirit's reaction when it tried to merge with his eyes or arms. This time, the magic scarlet poisonous fruit did not resist, allowing Qin Nan to refine it. However, as it was refining the magic scarlet poisonous fruit, a question lingered in its mind. This kid. Who exactly was he? No one could answer its question, until it completely became a part of Qin Nan's body. Chapter 747. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 749. The Heavenly Fortune Succession. The process took a total of 6 hours. For more information, visit www. Within these 6 hours, Qin Nan had refined the magic scarlet fruit into a stream of magic scarlet poison, which merged with his body. After the period it took an incense to burn. Whoosh! Qin Nan's eyes sprang open all of a sudden. From all the pores on his body, strands of black smoke were emitted and drifted in all directions. His entire body had undergone a tremendous change. Not only did it possess a powerful poison, it was immune to all kinds of poison, causing his battle prowess to skyrocket. As expected of the magic scarlet poisonous fruit. Even I myself am unable to estimate my current battle strength. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. Previously, he would need to use his full strength to deal with the third-layer martial sacred realm light-shaking martial ancestor. However, he would only need to use 7/10 of his strength to deal with the light-shaking realm cultivator. Have you recovered? Qin Nan glanced at Yu Luosha and discovered that her aura had calmed down significantly. However, Qin Nan could also sense that Yu Luosha's soul had suffered a serious injury, which would take some time to recover. Rumble! Before Yu Luosha could respond, a series of shocking explosions took place. The two turned their heads around. The space above the altar was torn apart unknowingly. Streams of magical force flowed out from the gap, which soon formed a giant door. Passing through the door would bring them to another world. Once we enter the door, I believe we will arrive at the place of the heavenly fortune succession. Qin Nan glanced at Yu Luosha and said, "Let's go." Yu Luosha nodded. Then, the two of them stepped through the door together. Read the text. Whoosh. Not long after, the two of them arrived in another space. Qin Nan quickly looked around and couldn't help but be slightly stunned. The place they were in was actually a dark blue dojo that spanned a circumference of 50 kilometers. There was nothing on the dojo, and it gave one a feeling of emptiness and solitude. What was going on? Didn't they say that there was a heavenly secret inheritance? Why is there nothing? Yeah. The heavenly fortune mouse jumped into the air and fired a mystical ray into the rift at the front of the dojo. The space ahead began to distort like ripples on the surface of water. A while later, layers of mist rose into the air, and within the mist, a magnificent palace could be seen. He was actually hiding in this dojo? Qin Nan was slightly startled. He immediately unleashed his left eye of the divine god of battle and discovered a powerful formation encapsulating the entrance of the palace. The aura of the formation felt like a bottomless abyss. Once it was activated, it would unleash a terrifying power. Yeah. The heavenly fortune mouse raised its paws and gestured. So you're saying that the succession of the heavenly fortune path will only be activated when the others come out from the succession? Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he observed the heavenly fortune mouse's actions. He finally understood the entire heavenly fortune path. The heavenly fortune path was like an ant's nest, with various paths. As long as one followed the paths, they would eventually arrive at the center. The 1-starred succession, 2-starred succession, and 3-starred succession were all trials. Passing the trials would allow one to reach the end and compete for the succession. That's exactly what I wanted. Qin Nan exhaled deeply. It felt like his eyes were filled with a certain emotion. Are you all right? Yuluosha was shocked. She had no idea why such a strong battle intent would be emitted from Qin Nan's body all of a sudden. She had no idea how much Qin Nan was hoping for a great battle. Since Qin Nan had achieved the divine battle martial highness realm, he had never met a worthy opponent. I'm fine. Qin Nan shook his head and withheld the battle intent in his heart. He glanced to the side as he was aware of something. Someone's here. As he thought, a door appeared on the dojo, from which a few figures dropped out. Jiang Bailan, screw you, I'm not done with you. A familiar roar could be heard, which turned out to be Longhu. Jiang Bailan, who was wearing a black robe, ignored the roar with an expressionless face. As for the rest of the rogue cultivators, their gazes toward Jiang Bailan were filled with great respect. The strength that this woman had displayed at the succession ground had left an indelible impression in their hearts. Qin Nan? Jiang Bailan's eyes flickered when she discovered Qin Nan's presence. Qin Nan? Qin Nan! You have to avenge me. This Jiang Bailan has taken all the treasures on her own. Longhu vented his anger as if he had found his savior. He was incredibly frustrated. Since they had arrived at the succession ground, every treasure they had found had been taken away by Jiang Bailan. Jiang Bailan didn't even leave him a single demonic beast's corpse. Qin Nan's mind darkened. Why was this Longhu being treated unfairly wherever he went? However, on second thought, this guy seemed to be quite unlucky. Bang! 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 At that instant, a total of 6 doors appeared at the same time. From the door, the rogue cultivators entered one after another and arrived at the dark blue dojo, causing the spacious dojo to be filled with almost 100 people in just a short time. Among them were Mu Tianxing, the 3 disciples of the Mu clan, and Jiang Fifan. At that instant, Mu Tianxing, the 3 disciples of the Mu clan, and Jiang Fifan were in a pleasant mood, as they had managed to acquire the most precious treasures in their respective successions. Furthermore, their strength had improved significantly. I hope that Qin Nan dies in the 1-starred succession ground. The faces of the 4 disciples of the Mu clan and Jiang Fifan darkened as a sudden thought crossed their minds. They cursed in their hearts and scanned their surroundings. Until now, they still could not forget the fact that Qin Nan had entered the 1-starred succession ground without doing anything. They were not convinced. Qin Nan? When they turned their heads, the 4 sons of the Mu clan, Jiang Fifan, and the other 4 immediately saw that familiar figure. Their faces froze. Qin Nan! It's Qin Nan! He has come out from the 1-starred succession ground. Gasp! The treasures in the 2-starred succession ground are all so powerful. The treasures in the 1-starred succession ground must be even more powerful. This Qin Nan's strength was already terrifying. I can't help but wonder how much stronger he is now." The expressions of the rogue cultivators on the scene changed drastically. Some of them who were initially in a good mood suddenly straightened their faces, while those who were not in a good mood felt even more gloomy. However, at that instant, bang, 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 another series of explosions took place. The remaining doors appeared one after another, as figures stepped out from them and landed on the dojo. In other words, the trials of the 18 successions had all come to an end. These people were the ones who had passed the trials. Qin Nan withdrew his gaze after glimpsing at Mu Tianxing and the others. His eyes flickered as he stared at the scene before him. The succession of the heavenly fortune path. Chapter 748. Geniuses remember love in 1 second divided by small? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 750 Monarch Corpse. Almost everyone was aware of the fact that the succession of the heavenly fortune path was about to take place, causing the atmosphere of the place to heat up as a great pressure began to brew. Access. Qin Nan's cultivation has improved. Not only him, Mu Tianxing, Jiang Fifan, Cheng Tianga, and the others have improved too. We must team up when the time comes. Of course, the rogue cultivators quickly communicated with one another with their divine sense. They knew that they would not stand a chance against the geniuses in a one-on-one battle, thus the only way was to team up. Bang! At that instant, following an explosion, the magnificent hall at the end of the dojo appeared, emitting a mystical glow. The terrifying formation at the entrance of the hall was torn apart as if it had been slashed by a sword, causing it to shatter into pieces and disappear. Creak, creak. The wooden door at the entrance of the hall slowly opened as if it was being pulled open by a giant hand. As soon as the door was opened, a terrifying suppression burst out from it, filling the entire dojo, causing everyone's heart to beat rapidly. The succession of the heavenly fortune path was about to take place. Squeak, squeak. The heavenly fortune mouse became extremely excited, as if it had sensed something. The two martial progenitors held their breaths and stared with their eyes open wide, not willing to miss a single detail. The door continued to open slowly. Its speed was extremely slow, as if an old man was walking on the street. However, no one complained, nor did anyone make a sound. The entire dojo was filled with a terrifying aura, which grew stronger as the aura grew stronger. It was as if the aura would explode at the slightest opportunity. Bang! A rare occurrence took place. Almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than normal websites, and the updates are faster too. There are no advertisements here. The slowly opening door seemed to have been stimulated by something. It sped up and opened directly, revealing the original appearance of the main hall. Countless black glows burst out from the hall like a surging tide. The Tianji inheritance has been completely opened. At that instant, a hoarse voice could be heard as an illusionary figure appeared at the entrance of the hall. The figure was none other than Madame Heavenly Fortune, who had appeared at the chaotic ocean of the Crimson Blood tribe. Now, little ones, let me introduce the treasures of the Tianji inheritance to you. Madame Heavenly Fortune pointed at the right side of the palace and said, "In this place, there are some slightly less valuable treasures. They are some spirit herbs, and one of them is the Dream of Past Life flower, which is slightly more valuable." Buzz. Within the black light, hundreds of rays of light surged out from the right side of the hall. They were actually stalks of spiritual herbs. Inside the spirit medicine was a flower petal that had a strange grayish-white color. Furthermore, that color was flowing non-stop, as if it had come to life. This medicine was none other than the Dream of Rebirth flower. Dream of Past Life flower. It's the Dream of Rebirth flower. Everyone present came back to their senses, and their eyes revealed a hint of excitement. Xiao said, "To acquire the flower. Become the disciple of the patriarch of the Mu clan. Their status and position would undergo a shocking change." The disciples of the Mu clan, in particular, were extremely excited. The dream of past life flower was indeed in the Mu clan. Once they acquired the flower, they would be able to carry out their plan. So this is what the patriarch of the Mu clan is after. Qin Nan glanced at the treasures without showing much interest. He only had one master in his life, thus becoming the disciple of the Mu clan's patriarch was not attractive to him. Kids, don't be too excited. There are still 5 treasures left, and they are a lot more valuable than the precedent dream flower. Once you've acquired them, you can easily alter your destiny. Madam Heavenly Fortune said with a hoarse voice, "Come, I'll show them to you." As soon as she finished speaking, 2 brilliant golden rays were fired into the sky from the center of the hall, as if they were going to break the clouds apart. A terrifying aura swept across the sky, resulting in a series of dull claps of thunder. Everyone could only see 2 golden corpses, one sitting with its legs crossed, while the other stood upright. It was as if time had stopped. Even though the 2 skeletons were dead and did not make any sound, the oppressive aura emitted from each of their bones seemed to be telling the world that they were not dead. How glorious they had been in the past! Even after their deaths, they were still able to suppress the heavens and earth. These 2 corpses are the remains of half-martial monarchs after their death. Once they are refined, they will alter their destinies and become the martial ancestor as long as they are not intercepted. It's even possible for them to become the Emperor Wu. Madam Heavenly Fortune said in a calm voice. However, the calm voice caused a great storm in the hearts of the crowd. The corpses of half-martial monarchs. Once they were refined, they would become the martial ancestor, or even the Emperor Wu. Even though it was only a possibility, they did not even have a glimpse of hope. Especially Mu Tianxing, Cheng Tienge, and Jiang Fifan, the 3 geniuses, whose hearts began to race. If they were able to refine the corpses of half-martial monarchs, it would greatly increase their chances of becoming the Emperor Wu. The reason being that they already had the martial monarch potential. F***Kmi. 2 half-martial monarch corpses. Qin Nan, at all costs, you must retrieve these 2 corpses for me. The 2 martial ancestor became enraged at that instant. Possessing the corpses of half-martial monarchs, they would be able to return to the world and surpass their past. These 2 corpses are quite useful. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. If he were to refine these 2 corpses, he would be able to achieve a breakthrough. Look at you guys, why are you so excited? These 2 half-martial monarch corpses aren't the best treasure. Madam Heavenly Fortune shook her head and exclaimed, "There are still 3 treasures left. I'll show them to you all at once. If you're able to acquire these 3 treasures, your future will be unimaginable." Whoosh! The black glow in the hall disappeared all of a sudden. The 2 half-martial monarch corpses sitting with their legs crossed turned around simultaneously as if they were aware of something. They lowered their heads slightly as if they were submitting themselves. Bang! At that instant the entire hall exploded as if it had just received a great blow. A terrifying purple glow burst out from the hall and covered the dojo, causing it to be covered in a mystical purple glow. This is... For the first time in his life, Qin Nan's expression changed. Even he could feel his heart skipping a beat due to the suppression. The other rogue cultivators were even more shocked and inexplicably shocked. They could only see a corpse standing at the center of the hall, with 2 corpses in the shape of a dog standing beside it. However, everyone's attention was attracted by the corpse. Unlike the corpses of the half-martial monarchs, each of its bones was engraved with ancient, mysterious patterns of flowers, emitting an intimidating force. More importantly, once it appeared, all things in the world lost their color. In the hearts of everyone present, a feeling of worship was born. It was as if they had just seen their king. They had to bow down to the king. Chapter 749. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 751. The battle erupts among the three treasures. The two corpses with the shape of dogs are known as heavenly fortune hounds, one of the precious treasures of our heavenly fortune tribe. If you manage to refine them, you will become a heavenly fortune hound, inheriting the destiny of the heavenly fortune tribe. Quick update: the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. Please leave a good review. For more information, please visit www. Madam Heavenly Fortune said, "As for the one in the middle, I believe you have already guessed it. This is the monarch bone. If you don't die in advance after acquiring it, you will become Emperor Wu." Bang! It was as if a great explosion had taken place in the hearts of the crowd. The heavenly fortune hounds were completely ignored by them. No matter what, they would not want to become a hound. However, this great emperor's corpse was simply too heaven-defying. Once they refined it, they would become Emperor Wu. The two corpses of Emperor Wu were not even a tenth of this martial monarch corpse. No one would be able to resist the temptation. Who would not want to become Emperor Wu and write a peerless legend in the Kanglan continent? The treasures have appeared. If you want to acquire them, you will have to rely on your own strength. Young ones, let's begin. Madam Heavenly Fortune blurted out before her figure began to twist and slowly disappear. There were no rules in the final trial. Everything depended on one's strength. Purely based on strength? Qin Nan was startled. In his mind, the succession of the Heavenly Fortune tribe would have some kind of trial. However, Qin Nan soon collected his thoughts, as his eyes emitted a shocking glow. It was all based on strength. He liked it. The entire dojo fell into a dead silence. Even the sound of a pin dropping to the ground could be heard. However, after 3 breaths' time, the crowd collected their thoughts and unleashed a shocking murderous aura. It's mine. The martial monarch corpse is mine. Who dares to compete with me? I'll kill whoever dares to do so. Charge. I'll alter my destiny, I'll become the Emperor Wu. Deafening roars could be heard in the blink of an eye. Almost every cultivator's eyes turned red. The opportunity was right in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions took place, which swept the entire dojo. The rogue cultivators immediately made their moves and charged toward the treasures. Mystical rays flickered continuously behind him, dragging the cultivators back, preventing them from moving forward. The entire scene was extremely chaotic, and it was as if an unprecedented war had erupted. Qin Nan! Jiang Bailan shouted in a low voice. Move! Qin Nan took a step forward. The battle intent in his body was already surging, unable to be suppressed. However, at that instant a rare occurrence took place. A scorching sensation rose in his heart. Qin Nan, help me get the precedent dream flower. Princess Miao Miao's voice suddenly appeared in Qin Nan's divine sense with a stern look. We can't let Mu Tianxing and his crew get it. Otherwise, when the time comes, the situation will be quite bad. Qin Nan was slightly startled. He did not expect Princess Miao Miao to transmit her voice through the illusionary mirror. When he was about to reply, Princess Miao Miao's aura had already disappeared. Forget it, no matter what happened, since the princess has spoken, I'll get the precedent dream flower for her. Qin Nan swiftly made up his mind and glanced at Jiang Bailan, Yu Luosha, and Longhu. Do it! Just as he finished speaking, a low voice rang out. Bang! A terrifying aura sprang into the sky from the chaotic battlefield. Qin Nan and his crew were like an army, attracting the attention of the crowd. Qin Nan! It's Qin Nan! He's making his move. Damn it, what should we do? Don't panic. We'll act according to the situation. At that instant, the rogue cultivators who were in the middle of a duel were shocked. They immediately communicated with one another with their divine sense. Jiang Fifan, Cheng Tiange, Mu Tianxing, who was moving back and forth in the crowd, transmitted his voice to the other two. Keep working together. Kill Qin Nan first. Cheng Tiange and Jiang Fifan raised their heads and stared at the figure in the sky. Their eyes flickered with murderous intent. Qin Nan might be strong. However, if they were to team up, they would surely be able to eliminate him. Let's retrieve the martial monarch corpse first. Qin Nan floated in the air and ignored the crowd's gaze. His left eye emitted a purple glow as it locked onto Emperor Wu's corpse at the center of the battlefield. 10,000 streams of the force of the Martial Highness realm were unleashed from his body. Bang! Qin Nan's figure sprang forward like an arrow being fired, resulting in a tremendous gust of wind. His speed was utterly terrifying. Even the rogue cultivators had yet to recover from the shock. Qin Nan's figure was only less than 5 zhang away from the martial monarch corpse, just inches away from him. Qin Nan, don't even think about it. A loud roar could be heard all of a sudden. Meanwhile, Mu Tianxing collected his thoughts and took out a talisman from his storage bag. As he crushed the talisman, countless chains sprang out from the talisman and arrived before Qin Nan in the blink of an eye, forming a giant claw that slashed downward at Qin Nan's figure. Qin Nan's figure shuddered as his figure shuddered. Streams of gust burst out from his body and shattered the chains into pieces. 3 Occult Mountain Suppressing Formation. The 3 disciples of the Mu clan took advantage of Qin Nan's hesitation to unleash their full power. They formed a terrifying formation that crushed downward onto Qin Nan's head. A tremendous pressure surged toward Qin Nan like a surging tide. Break! Qin Nan's left eye flickered as he uttered a thunderous roar and slashed with his right hand. The formation began to crack, as if it had just received a destructive blow, causing the 3 disciples of the Mu clan to be astounded as they were knocked backward. Left eye, peeking through the weakness. Right hand, unleashing a saber intent to shatter the formation. Crap! Mu Tianxing was startled. He did not expect the formation to fail to stop Qin Nan for a single breath. Whoosh! Whoosh! At that instant 2 powerful figures sprang into the sky, who turned out to be Jiang Fifan and Cheng Tiange. The 2 of them, one on the left and one on the right, were preparing to pincer Qin Nan. Your opponent is me. Jiang Bailan wore a grin as her figure emitted a powerful aura and a boundless deathly aura. She didn't show any mercy to the 2 of them. In the next moment she sighed softly. The sigh of death. Bang! A terrifying force of death tore the rift apart and descended upon the 2 cultivators, as if the god of death was here to claim their lives. Crap! The expressions of the 2 geniuses changed abruptly. Soul-sealing technique. Sky-shattering palm. Soaring eagle hook. At that instant, several figures flew toward Qin Nan and executed a series of shocking attacks. The cultivators were none other than the rogue cultivators. They were aware of Qin Nan's strength, but did it matter? If Qin Nan dared to rob them, they would team up with him. At that instant, countless artifacts and ancient martial arts swept toward Qin Nan like a surging tide. The power of the attacks was utterly shocking. Roar! At that instant, a roar could be heard all of a sudden. Long Hu transformed into his true form and stood in front of Qin Nan as a shield. Yuluosha performed a hand seal to summon a throne. Qin Nan, quick! The 2 yelled at the same time. They could only resist the attacks for a single breath's time. Whoosh! Chapter 750. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 752. The rebellion of the martial ancestor beasts descend. Longyang Codex. In the nick of time, Longhu and Yu Luosha uttered shocking roars. Several beast puppets sprang into the sky and formed a book with blossoming petals. Advertisement. How quick! The two moves were both peerless ancient martial arts, which were on par with monarch arts. However, they were facing over 100 rogue cultivators and geniuses. The ancient martial arts and artifacts in the sky emitted a shocking aura, which swept across the heavens and earth, crushing toward the duo like a heavy ocean. Even the two ancient martial arts and the duo's auras were extremely minuscule before such an aura. The duo could feel their scalps turning numb as a great chill ran down their spines. A strong sense of danger surged toward them. But what could they possibly do? They had to at least buy Qin Nan some time. Qin Nan, don't even think about it. In the blink of an eye, Mu Tianxing swiftly reacted after recovering from his astonishment. He reached out his hand and scooped the disciples of the Mu clan into the air. His eyes flickered with a ferocious look. It was time for him to use his trump card. Endless death, open the abyss. 38 of the underworld. Undead. Return. However, at that instant, Jiang Bailan's eyes emitted a shocking glow as the flames of her lifespan burned fiercely on her body, which transformed into a stronger death aura as she activated the ancient door. Bang! The rift on the dojo was torn apart as an ancient, strange door appeared. As soon as the door was opened, it felt like the door to a new world had been opened. Countless undead poured out from the door and swept the entire dojo, including the rogue cultivators. Damn it! How is she so powerful? Mu Tianxing's expression changed. As he was caught off guard, his figure was knocked backward by the overwhelming number of undead, causing him to miss his chance. Damn it! Why are there so many undead here? This is bad. Countless rogue cultivators' expressions changed. Due to the undead creatures' attacks, they had no choice but to cancel their Dharma seals and withdraw their Dharma seals. That being said, many rogue cultivators were able to dodge the attacks with shocking movement techniques and continued to execute their attack. But the pressure on Longhu and Yu Luosha was relieved. The danger of death was gone too. It was as if Jiang Bailan's attack had turned the tide. On the other hand, Jiang Bailan's face had turned a lot paler, and her aura had dropped a lot. She was severely injured. Even so, in the span of a breath she, Longhu, and Yu Luosha had fought for Qin Nan. Qin Nan could easily take the treasures. Good job. Qin Nan was aware of everything that had taken place. Instead of slowing down, he picked up his pace and arrived before the martial monarch corpse in less than a tenth of a breath's time. Bang! Several auras burst out from his body, which transformed into giant hands that grabbed at the precedent dream flower, the two half-martial monarch corpses, the two heavenly fortune hounds corpses, and the martial monarch corpse. This time, he was going to take all of the treasures into his pocket. Qin. Mu Tianxing and his crew, Qing Tiange, Jiang Fifan, and the crowd stared with their eyes open wide. Was everything going to be taken away by Qin Nan? Ha ha ha. Qin Nan kid. Thanks a lot. However, Shishue and I will be taking the martial monarch corpse and the two half-martial monarch corpses. I'll reward you when I achieve the martial monarch realm. However, at that instant, a burst of laughter could be heard. Bang! Two powerful auras burst out from Qin Nan's body. They were none other than the disordered ocean martial ancestor and the Shishue martial ancestor. It turned out that they had made up their minds the moment they saw the martial monarch corpses and the half-martial monarch corpses. They were planning to claim them at the last moment. They clearly knew that Qin Nan would never give them the martial monarch corpses. He would only give them a half-martial monarch corpse. Therefore, they were planning to do it themselves? As for betrayal? They were not even friends, how could they betray each other? In the martial world, benefits were the most important thing. Once they missed out on this opportunity, When would they ever find it again? I knew you two would make your move. However, Qin Nan was not surprised at all. His eyes became extremely cold. He had not given the two martial progenitors enough chaos chi, as he was worried that the two martial progenitors would stab him in the back at a crucial moment. And now, it had come true. At that instant, a stream of the force of the divine god of battle was unleashed in Qin Nan's body. A terrifying aura burst out from Qin Nan's body, causing his purple hair to drift wildly. Nice one. However, we already knew how terrifying your cultivation is. Now, have a taste of our attack. Seal of 10,000 Azura. The eyes of the two martial ancestors flickered as they immediately performed hand seals. Several illusionary figures of Azuras were summoned and lunged at Qin Nan's figure at an unbelievable speed. Before Qin Nan could react, the Azuras had already landed on his body and turned into chains, sealing off his movements. Ha ha ha. I know your cultivation is strong, but either way, this seal of Azura can seal off your movements for a breath's time. A breath's time is more than enough. The disordered ocean martial ancestor was extremely proud. 10,000 streams of the force of the martial highness realm and 1 stream of the force of the divine god of battle were unleashed in Qin Nan's body, but they were unable to break the seal immediately. Even if he were to draw out the heaven-shattering saber, it would be too late. Did he really have to watch the two martial ancestors claim the martial monarch corpse? Squeak, squeak. The heavenly fortune mouse suddenly appeared out of nowhere and began to gesture furiously. Qin Nan was startled. The two martial ancestors did not bother looking at the martial monarch corpse. With a flicker, they immediately grabbed at the martial monarch corpse. They would be killed by the heavenly fortune path if they stayed for another 2 breaths' time. Everything was a race against the clock. Everyone stared with their eyes open wide, as they did not expect this to happen. It was also at this moment. Bang! Long Hu and Yu Luosha spat out mouthfuls of blood as their figures were sent flying, causing their auras to drop rapidly. Even though Jiang Bailan had managed to save the situation, the remaining ancient martial arts and artifacts still inflicted great damage to them. We're running out of time. Jiang Bailan's eyes dimmed instantly. The time they had bought for Qin Nan was almost up. As expected, in the next moment it was at this moment. Bang! 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 Several figures sprang into the sky and crushed the undead into pieces. After all, these undead did not possess strong cultivations to begin with. Charge! Someone is stopping Qin Nan! We still have a chance to claim the other treasures. In the blink of an eye, the figures on the dojo charged forward like a terrifying army. The two martial ancestors' figures grabbed at the martial monarch corpse. Qin Nan was trapped in the same spot. Now, even a single breath was an extremely precious breath. A single breath could be the difference between heaven and hell. It was as if time had frozen. Their chance was gone. At least, Qin Nan had no chance of claiming the martial monarch corpse. Damn it, it's the martial monarch corpse. The two martial ancestors' eyes were filled with excitement. As they grabbed at the martial monarch corpse, as they had expected, a powerful force was emitted from the martial monarch corpse and lashed at them. The two martial ancestors immediately executed their moves to shatter the force as if they had already expected it. They had expected that they would be hindered when they were trying to claim the martial monarch corpse. As such, they had decided to charge forward together. From today onward, I'm going to be a martial monarch. Ah! Seeing their hands about to land on the martial monarch corpse, the disordered ocean martial ancestor and the crimson blood martial ancestor could not help but burst out laughing. A martial monarch! They had been longing for it for a few hundred years. However, at that instant, Qin Nan's eyes suddenly emitted a brilliant glow. Heavenly Fortune Mouse! Attack! Whoosh! A skinny figure sprang forward at a terrifying pace. It was none other than the Heavenly Fortune Mouse. The heavenly fortune mouse wore a mocking smile as it swung its claws at the two martial ancestors' direction. "You little asshole! You dare to stop us?" The two martial ancestors were infuriated upon sensing this, who immediately executed their attacks. However, a shocking sight took place. The heavenly fortune mouse sprang forward at a terrifying speed. Before the two martial ancestors could execute their attacks, its claws had already struck the two martial ancestors' chests, resulting in a tremendous force. The two martial ancestors were dumbfounded. They did not expect the heavenly fortune mouse to possess such a powerful force. In the blink of an eye, the two martial ancestors could only feel their figures flying backward rapidly. "That's the martial monarch corpse." The two martial ancestors collected their thoughts and felt extremely sorrowful. Their plan had failed in the end because of a mere mouse. At that instant, a magical force approached the two martial ancestors' direction. The two martial ancestors subconsciously turned their heads around, and their expressions changed tremendously. F***K The two of them collided with the heavenly fortune hound. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.